Chapter 797. Messengers of God are nothing. Even if your true God is here, I can still kill him. Jiang Tian slowly approached the black-robed priest, murderous intent flashing in his eyes. He never believed that the Holy See and the clergy were kind people. In history, in order to protect its authority and seize worldly wealth, the Church had launched 8 crusades, burning, killing, looting, and plunging the people into misery and suffering. In the Middle Ages, the Pope wrestled with the secular dynasties, fought for power, challenged the imperial power, launched several wars, and forcibly recruited soldiers. Their Inquisition suppressed and persecuted the secular world, brutally killing hundreds of thousands of heretics. It could be said that their hands were stained with blood. They had imprisoned Copernicus, who insisted on the heliocentric theory, and burned Bruno alive. Galileo was also imprisoned by the Inquisition for 9 years until he died of illness. In modern times, the missionaries were the vanguard of the colonists' invasion of Asia, Africa, and Latin America. They collected intelligence, promoted enslavement education, and found and trained agents for the colonists. Jiang Tian would not be polite to them. But at this moment, in the sharp sound of whooshing, many powerhouses of the Holy See arrived around the treasure vault on holy light. Some of them were guards of the Holy See wearing ancient armor. Some of them were powerful holy knights. Some of them were cruel and merciless inquisitors. And some of them were saint spell masters who were comparable to Wuxia spellcasters. There were actually several hundred of those guards. Almost all of them were inner force cultivators, and half of them were masters. They were everywhere on the mountain, carrying all kinds of tools and weapons. It seemed that they wanted to take away the treasures. More than a dozen of them came to the cave, and a few of them were immortal state. The leader was a red-robed bishop, and he was a real saint. Hera was shocked when she saw this. It was an eye-opener. There had been no record of a saint in the West for hundreds of years. But in fact, one had appeared in front of her. Haha, it seems that all the major forces are the same. Their real trump cards are unknown and kept secret. Jiang Tian wasn't surprised. It was all within reason. Yi Zhantian, who was only half a step away from the immortal state, was the face of Wuxia's martial arts. But in fact there were more powerful semi-hidden sects, such as Hongmeng, where there were at least dozens of immortal state cultivators and many human immortals. It was just like Russia. Alexander the Moon Wolf King was the most powerful on the surface, but in fact, the Wolf Ancestor and the Caucasus Shaman King had both surpassed the immortal state. It was just like how the CIA appeared to be the most powerful in the United States, but behind them was Blue Storm, and the even more mysterious Cosmic Shield. Speaking of which, only a small country like Japan had the weakest foundation, yet it was arrogant and conceited. Only Miyamoto Genichi, who was half a step away from the divine realm, survived, but he was killed by his saber. After that, no other experts appeared. How dare you be disrespectful to our priests? You've insulted the messengers of God, which means you've offended God. Why aren't you kneeling and begging for mercy? Do you want to die? Where's my baby? Did you steal it, thief? Hurry up and hand it over. Otherwise, the Inquisitor will burn you at the stake. At this moment, seeing that the black-clothed priest was beaten to the point of vomiting blood and falling to the ground, the clergy, guards, and paladins all pointed at Jiang Tian and roared angrily, surrounding him with weapons in hand. Do you still dare to kill me? The cloister and even the Holy See will not rest until you die. Furthermore, our main force has already arrived. Seeing that strong reinforcements had arrived, the priest in black immediately straightened his neck and said arrogantly, "Sinner, kneel and surrender, or we will execute you by hanging and send your soul to hell." He was arrogant, and he revealed a smug smile. He actually recklessly threatened Jiang Tian. "Do you think they can save you? Do you think I won't dare to kill you now that they're here?" Jiang Tian coldly looked at the black-clothed priest as a cold smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. "What did you say?" The priest in black couldn't believe it. His face suddenly turned pale, but it was too late. Smack. Jiang Tian raised his hand and smashed the priest in black directly into a meat paste, sinking into the ground. "What? You dare to kill a member of the Holy See? Villain! Kill him!" Seeing this, many powerhouses of the Holy See and the cloister were shocked and furious. They almost went crazy and pulled out their weapons, ready to attack Jiang Tian. The Holy See's foundation was too deep, and its influence in history was too great. Rising in 392 AD, it had a long history of more than 1,000 years. In the dazzling Middle Ages, when immortal state cultivators were everywhere, they could dominate the entire European continent, and were more glorious than the royal families of the big countries. Even the powerhouses of Russia and Central Asia had to listen to their orders. Although the Holy See's influence weakened with the rise of the big capitalist countries, it was still the undisputed number one force in the world. Its influence was comparable to that of the big countries of the world. But now Jiang Tian had killed a priest of one of the 9 major cloisters in front of a red-robed bishop. This was a slap to the Holy See's face, and they couldn't accept it. A divine paladin leaped and swung his huge sword at Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian flicked his finger. Smack! The paladin's head exploded, and his glistening flesh fell to the ground. He died instantly. Very well. Does the Holy See want to fight with me? Then I don't mind killing every last one of you. Jiang Tian coldly shouted. His dignified gaze swept over the crowd as he spoke arrogantly. Archbishop Shix, this is the Honorable Kong Taichu. Don't do anything. Seeing this, Hera was shocked. She knew that Jiang Tian was going to kill someone. She hurriedly stopped the Holy See's powerhouses. These are the spoils of war that Kong Taichu obtained after defeating the Covenant of Darkness. They should belong to him. Kong Taichu didn't want to provoke the Holy See. After all, the Hall of the Gods was still supported by the Holy See. She also had some friendship with the Holy See and didn't want to see them die. What? He's Kong Taichu. The red-robed bishop's expression changed, and he was shocked and furious. He's Kong Taichu. No wonder he could kill an immortal with a flick of his finger. He's so powerful. At that moment, the powerhouses of many families were shocked. Their eyes were filled with fear as they took a few steps back. Among the crowd, only Shix remained calm. His eyes were filled with anger as he said with a cold expression. Mr. Kong Taichu, I know you. It's said that you're a true immortal of the East. But why did you kill a clergyman of the Holy See? He killed me, so I killed him. It's that simple. Do you think I should just wait for him to kill me and not fight back? Jiang Tian put his hands behind his back and smiled coldly. Shix wore a tall crown inlaid with gems and a red robe. His body was filled with gentle holy light, and he was filled with supreme majesty. He said with a slightly angry face, everyone in the world is sinful. Only by serving the Heavenly Father devoutly can one be redeemed. He's purifying you and helping you ascend to heaven. It's out of kindness. He suddenly slammed the scepter in his hand and assumed the posture of a red-robed bishop. He was full of arrogance and bossiness. You stole the treasures that belonged to the Holy See and killed people. This is unforgivable. He seemed to be a high and mighty judge, while Jiang Tian was a criminal. He ordered loudly. You are a criminal. He shouted loudly. Now, I order you to return all the treasures and come to our monastery to repent sincerely for 10 years. Then, the Heavenly Father will forgive you. It was rumored that Jiang Tian was very powerful. He also knew that Jiang Tian had defeated the Covenant of Darkness. However, Shix felt that he could suppress Jiang Tian. He was a servant of the gods, and the cultivation methods he practiced were not to be underestimated. They were passed down by the true gods and were the orthodox way of all cultivation. He was not something that the vampires and werewolves could compare to. In his opinion, even blood ancestor Cain would not be a match for him. What could Kong Taichu prove by defeating Cain? Most importantly, he believed that the Holy See and the true gods behind him were people that Jiang Tian did not dare to offend. The Holy See's foundation was too deep. There were 9 top-notch monasteries in various European countries, with many hidden gods overseeing them. It was said that the true god they worshipped had been manifesting recently, as if he was going to reappear in the world. No matter how strong Jiang Tian was, how could he dare to challenge the Holy See, which had more than 2,000 years of history? Hand over the treasures and kneel for mercy. Sinner, how dare you challenge the dignity of the Holy See? Do you want to die? Do you really think you're a god? You're just a demon. If you dare resist, the Holy See will kill you. What kind of demon is he? The Holy See has already awakened, and the true God has appeared. He's just an ant, not worth mentioning. Seeing Jiang Tian's attitude, the paladins, priests, guards, and the like seemed to have gained a lot of confidence. They became arrogant and began to scold him. Forgive my ass. Do I need your forgiveness? Jiang Tian found it very funny. He casually waved his hand as if he was swatting a fly. Smack. Before he could cast any of his many holy spells, the scepter in Shik's hand, which had been blessed by the Pope, was shattered by Jiang Tian. He flew out like a dead dog, slamming into the stone wall and sliding down slowly. His head was broken, and blood dripped down. His face was covered in dirt, and he was in a sorry state. You dare to attack a red-robed bishop? Are you crazy? Villain. This villain should go to hell. Many of the Holy See's powerhouses were dumbfounded, unable to believe it. That was a red-robed bishop. Red-robed bishops, also known as cardinals, were the Pope's trusted aides. They had the right to elect and be elected the next Pope. Their status was even higher than the chief bishop of a country's highest clergy. In the Middle Ages, red-robed bishops were existences that could speak on equal terms with the emperors of large countries. They were even more shocked that Shix could not resist at all. One had to know that he was a true saint, with all kinds of divine abilities and holy spells that were mysterious and powerful. It was not something that ordinary people could imagine. But now he was actually swatted away by Jiang Tian like swatting a fly. Don't let him go. The power of faith was great. Even though they knew that they were no match for Jiang Tian, the Holy See closed in on him, brandishing their weapons. Today, we must kill this demon to protect the supreme dignity of the Holy See. They cast all kinds of holy spells, their faces ferocious and resentful, as if they could only vent their hatred by tearing Jiang Tian into pieces. Chapter 798. Clap, clap, clap. Jiang Tian flicked his fingers and killed the 3 adjudicators and paladins in the blink of an eye. But this counterattack made him even angrier. Clang, clang, clang. A paladin sounded the gong in his hand angrily. This meant that an intruder had appeared and everyone had to fight. Instantly, the hundreds of experts of the church who were scattered around the treasure trove were all shocked, and they rushed toward the entrance of the treasure trove, fighting to be the first to attack. If you want to die, I'll grant you your wish. Deep in Jiang Tian's eyes, the purple rings around his pupils expanded, and there seemed to be tiny purple lightning flashing. A great battle was about to break out. Suddenly, Shixin raised his hands and got up. He shouted with a pale face, "Stop. You can't fight with His Excellency Kong Te-Chu. Master Kong, please have mercy." This. Bishop, are we just going to let him go like this? Inside are all the treasures left by the Holy See. These powerhouses of the Holy See were all unwilling to give up. Shixin ignored his subordinates and bowed deeply. He looked at Jiang Tian with a warm expression. His Excellency Kong Te-Chu, since these treasures were obtained by you defeating the Blood Tribe, please take them away. He even lowered his voice and said, "We have offended you today. Please forgive us. You know what's good for you. If you knew what's good for you, you wouldn't have been slapped, right?" Jiang Tian smiled lazily and walked out with large strides. "Bishop, why should we give in? These treasures belong to the Holy See. How can we let him take them away?" After Jiang Tian left, an adjudicator said unhappily, "The Holy See has a history of nearly 2,000 years. We have a deep foundation and countless powerhouses. Recently, there have been miracles in many monasteries. The true God is about to descend. Why should we be afraid of Kong Te-Chu?" A paladin shouted angrily. "You and I are no match for Kong Te-Chu. We can't afford to offend him." Shix shook his head and grimaced. "You don't know what I just saw." When he looked into Jiang Tian's eyes, he felt as if his soul had been sucked into Jiang Tian's bottomless spiritual power. At that moment, he saw Jiang Tian riding a beast larger than the solar system, and traversing the depths of the universe like an ancient divine emperor. He saw that strange beast opening its mouth and swallowing a sea of stars and billions of living beings. That kind of scene was simply too shocking. It caused his heart to palpitate and his soul to almost be destroyed. Why would such a terrifying image appear in my mind? It's like the end of the world. Shik's face was pale. and he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. His expression gradually became serious. Could this be a divine omen, or some kind of apocalypse? I have to report this matter to the Pope. Perhaps a demon has appeared in the Middle Lands. Jiang Tian and Hera met up with Meryl, and had a simple meal together in a small town with a beautiful environment in Switzerland. Observer Meryl and many other informants had long been hidden in Europe, monitoring the movements of the various families supporting the Gathering of Darkness, and reporting to Jiang Tian at any time. After all, Jiang Tian had too many people. Even if the European Union suppressed the news, it would still spread, and some families would have already fled. Jiang Tian also had to expend a lot of effort to search with his divine sense. After all, Europe was not small, and Jiang Tian's divine sense could only cover a single city. However, with Meryl and the others following and monitoring and reporting to Jiang Tian at any time, it made things much easier for Jiang Tian. In truth, Jiang Tian had long reached the level of fasting, and could go without food or water for several years. However, Hera had not reached that level, and Meryl had long since been starving. Master Kong, I'm afraid you'll have a grudge with the Holy See this time. Hera sighed as she tasted the red wine from the Bordeaux chateau. Haha, so what if I have a grudge? I've already fought the Gathering of Darkness. Do you think I'm afraid of the Holy See? Jiang Tian said disdainfully. Do you know that the black-robed priest might be a direct descendant of St. Paul? Hera looked serious. So what? Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes. It was not the first time he had heard of St. Paul's name. It was said that St. Paul was the last saint of the West, which was equivalent to the cultivation of an eastern sky immortal. The remnant soul of the deity of 9 swords had also mentioned that he had once traveled to the West and met St. Paul. However, that was almost 1,000 years ago. Even if St. Paul was a true sky immortal, he was only at the 3rd level of foundation establishment. He would definitely not be able to last 1,000 years. He said calmly. I'm afraid he's already a pile of bones. Do you think he can jump out of his grave and fight with me? No, Hera said with an unprecedentedly serious expression. We've also seen the Gathering of Darkness this time. Cain and the others have the power comparable to nuclear weapons. But Cain, the steppe wolf ancestor, and many other overlords of the Gathering of Darkness still haven't dared to show up for a few hundred years. It's probably because St. Paul isn't dead and they've been warned by him. He's not dead? Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes. Hera's pretty face was grim as she said. He's been sleeping in the tomb of the Holy See for 1,000 years. But I heard that there has been a holy light in front of the tomb recently. There seems to be a sacred site. Some old cultivators went there to worship and bathe in the holy light. They were able to recover their youth and become young again. He's not dead? Doesn't that mean he has a lifespan of more than 1,000 years? That's unbelievable. Meryl widened her eyes in disbelief. Ever since she submitted to Jiang Tian and joined the intelligence department of Tianqing School, she had opened the door to a new world. For example, werewolves, kindred and supers. But it was the first time she had heard of an old monster that had lived for more than 1,000 years. Even the blood ancestor, Cain, didn't have such a long lifespan. It was said that he was less than 1,000 years old. He hadn't died for 1,000 years, and the holy light he emitted could even rejuvenate people. He wasn't human at all. He was comparable to a real deity. Jiang Tian's eyes focused slightly as he nodded and said, What you said isn't impossible. Actually, that old fellow Situ Xiao should have died already, but he used the method of blood condensation stopping lifespan to live until now. Blood coagulation technique? It was the first time Hera and Meryl had heard of such a technique. Blood coagulation technique is also called blood stopping lifespan. In short, it's a bit similar to the turtle breathing technique of the Eastern cultivation world. Jiang Tian explained. Turtles and old turtles can lower their breathing rate to a very low frequency and have abnormally slow metabolism. It's fine even if they don't eat for a while. Blood coagulation technique might be a bit more advanced, but it's about the same as the turtle breathing technique. Using the arcane technique to lower one's energy and vitality to the minimum without losing energy and vitality, it can increase one's lifespan by 100 times. It's very similar to the hibernation technique. Meryl clicked her tongue in wonder. She felt that it was very advanced. That's right. That's how it works. Situ Xiao and the others were born in the year of the tortoise. Jiang Tian said calmly. Situ Xiao, who was far away in the headquarters of the Hong sect in Canada, shuddered. Who's scolding me? It's just a legend. Hera shook her head. There have been many legends about deities around the world recently. It's a challenge for the Holy See, but it's also an opportunity. Maybe they purposely created such rumors to shock the world and confuse their believers. St. Paul and the other holy sages from 1,000 years ago were too far away from the current overlords. Even the existence of holy sages and divine immortals was just a legend. Even Hera, the current head of the Palace of Gods, was not sure. However, although I'm not sure if St. Paul is still alive, there are 9 saint kings in the 9 monasteries. That's for sure, Hera said. Each of the 9 monasteries has a red-robe cardinal. Each red-robe cardinal has reached the level of holy king, which is comparable to an earth god. They are on par with Situ Xiao. Under the leadership of the Roman Pope, the 9 monasteries are supported by 9 constitutional monarchies, including England, Spain, Switzerland, and Norway. With the religious tribunal as the blade, they control the entire Western world. Even now, they still have a strong influence. The Gathering of Darkness is no match for them. 9 holy kings? If I had encountered them before entering the sword vault, I might have been at a disadvantage, Jiang Tian said with a half-smile. It turned out that Jiang Tian had asked Hera about the Holy See, but she was secretive and hesitant to speak. At that time, Hera was still closer to the Holy See, but now, the Palace of Gods had been utterly defeated by the Gathering of Darkness, and the Holy See had not done anything from the beginning to the end. This made her stand firmly on Jiang Tian's side, and tell him all the information. Master Kong, I only know now that you are the savior of the world, the Messiah. Hera's face was a little ashamed. I have a feeling that things are not peaceful recently, as if there is a great change in the world. At this time, only you can turn the tide. So you still have to be careful of the Holy See. It's best if there is no direct conflict. If they don't cause trouble, I won't bother with them. Jiang Tian nodded and smiled. After Jiang Tian came out of the sword vault, he was not afraid of the Holy See at all. His Abijnao of Sun and Moon, Purple Lightning Blade, and ancient god Demon Slayer sword were all prepared for the Holy See's earth-level deities. The remaining forces of the Gathering of Darkness in Europe have been wiped out. Master Kong, where are you going next? Meryl asked after finishing the simple meal. I'm going to America. When Jiang Tian said this, Meryl and Hera's expressions changed drastically, and they looked at Jiang Tian in disbelief. Master Kong, if you go to America, they will definitely be alerted and even use nuclear weapons. Hera reminded him with a changed expression. An overlord who had surpassed the immortal state like Jiang Tian had long been watched by the intelligence agencies of the major countries in the world. Jiang Tian's every move affected their sensitive and fragile immortal state. Especially America. After World War II, the war against the immortal state was led by America. Among the countries in the world, America's attitude was the most resolute, and they used the most modern troops and weapons. If Jiang Tian's trip to America was discovered, who knew what kind of huge waves it would cause? Chapter 799. Nuclear weapons might not be able to kill me. Besides, they wouldn't dare to use them so easily, Jiang Tian said calmly. As long as Jiang Tian was in the United States, they wouldn't dare to use nuclear weapons, especially when he was in a big city. Nuclear weapons were too powerful and the pollution would last too long. So far, no country had ever used nuclear weapons on their own soil. If any politician dared to use nuclear weapons on their own soil, their political career would be over. His political career was completely over, and even his regime was about to collapse. He was beaten to death by the people. This was also the reason why many big countries wanted to nurture super strong organizations, instead of simply killing them with firearms. Master Kong, you've killed thousands of people in Europe. That's enough to deter them. Meryl said worriedly. I don't think there's a need to go to the United States and kill them all. It's too dangerous. No, I'm not acting on impulse. I have my reasons, Jiang Tian said calmly. After getting the explosive crystals, Jiang Tian wanted to go back to Sidoni to test the Super Dharma artifact, the Kuelian. If the Kuelian was successful, it would be the ultimate deterrent. Even the United States would be suppressed and no superpowers in the world would dare to provoke Jiang Tian. If that was the case, Jiang Tian would be able to fight all over the world without any worries, moving unhindered and searching for resources. He would be able to find resources to explore the ruins of deity and other secret lands to lay the foundation for breaking through to the mid-stage of the Foundation establishment. Jiang Tian was very eager. Jiang Tian didn't even care about the families in Canada and the United States that supported Sidoni. But then Jiang Tian thought about it and decided that he had to go to Canada, especially the United States. The Kuelian was more powerful than nuclear weapons. The superpowers in the world, especially the United States, were very cautious about nuclear weapons research. They wanted to eat flesh and skin. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, Kennedy was determined to stop it even if it meant using thermonuclear weapons. If Jiang Tian wanted to build the Kuelian system, how could the superpowers in the world like the United States just stand by and watch? In 1962, in order to prevent the Soviet Union from supporting the deployment of offensive missiles in Cuba, under the escort of 68 Air Force squadrons and 8 aircraft carriers, the huge UA fleet of 90 warships formed an arcade from Florida to Puerto Rico and sealed off the Cuban waters. The U.S. missile force was ordered to be in a state of high alert, and the missiles were waiting for orders on the launch pad. The United States had assembled the largest landing force since World War II to prepare for war, and U.S. military bases around the world were also on alert. Their swords were drawn and bows were bent. They were preparing for a global nuclear war. At that time, the situation was so tense that it was almost unbearable. The shadow of nuclear war loomed over the entire Caribbean Sea, and the entire world was in danger. If Jiang Tian wanted to test the Kuelian, then it was very possible. The United States' response was even more intense than the Cuban Missile Crisis. They even used nuclear weapons to destroy the Cuban Missile Crisis. Jiang Tian had cultivated for tens of thousands of years, and had the mentality of an old demon. He understood one thing. It was fine if he didn't intimidate them, but once he did, he had to make them tremble in fear and not have the slightest intention to resist. If he didn't intimidate them enough, they would definitely attack them with even crazier hatred. It was just like how Nie Mingyuan showed off his abilities everywhere and reorganized the Covenant of Darkness. He seemed arrogant and domineering, as if he could even suppress the European Union, but in fact, it was an insufficient deterrence. The European Union wasn't really afraid of Nie Mingyuan, but they wanted to kill him with a borrowed knife. The second after he killed the Tianqing school, the European Union coalition forces must have launched a volley of missiles and fighter jets, blowing Nie Mingyuan and the Covenant of Darkness into pieces. Jiang Tian's test firing of the Kuelian was the ultimate deterrence. But before that, Jiang Tian had to develop and test the Kuelian system smoothly to intimidate the American politicians. Although Meryl was very worried, she didn't dare to disobey Jiang Tian's insistence. She could only cooperate fully and help Jiang Tian forge an identity and a shield. She also investigated the names, photos, residences, and recent itineraries of the American politicians, and handed them to Jiang Tian. This time, Jiang Tian didn't bring anything except the sky-devouring magic gourd. Meryl returned to Sidoni, and Hera returned to England. Hera was also very helpless about this. After the Covenant of Darkness was destroyed, the European Union used the Temple of Gods again. But Hera was very disgusted and wanted to rely on Jiang Tian to build a branch of the Tianqing school in Europe. But Jiang Tian said that Hera could play a greater role under the European Union, and was equivalent to a spy. More than 10 hours later, Jiang Tian's flight landed at the Washington International Airport in the United States. When he left the airport, Jiang Tian was thinking about his next move while looking at the group of proud flight attendants around him. Although he was indifferent and quiet, he didn't want to become a stone or a monster isolated from the world. At the same time, a young girl behind her wearing sunglasses and pulling a suitcase suddenly shouted, "Jiang Tian!" Jiang Tian turned around to take a look. This woman had taken off her sunglasses, revealing a charming face with a sweet smile. Han Qingli, it's you. Jiang Tian had never thought that he would meet an old friend on the other side of the ocean. Han Qingli, one of the four beauties of Yanjin, was on par with Li Yanmei, Song Shuangyan and Charlene. She was Han Dao's daughter. When Jiang Tian killed Han Junkai, who had forced Zhang Yilin to marry him, Han Dao, on the other hand, was as ferocious as a tiger. He tried his best to hug Jiang Tian's thigh, and even gave this girl to Jiang Tian as a concubine. When Jiang Tian massacred the Lu family at Song Shuangyan's birthday party, this girl acted as Jiang Tian's companion and took Jiang Tian in. The news that Sidoni had the blood arrow orchid was provided by Lin Fengmian, but the more detailed information was found by Han Qingli's brother, Han Junfeng. Later, the Han family also joined Sidoni's construction industry. With the power of Lingnan, the Han family could only occupy the second tier, but they also made a lot of money. After a year or two, Han Qingli looked more mature and elegant. She was wearing a pair of brown sunglasses, and her hair was down to her shoulders. She was wearing a Prada business skirt, which highlighted her exquisite and tall figure. Her slender legs were wrapped in black stockings, and she was wearing high heels, looking like a strong woman in the workplace. The last time they met was during the battle with Zhang Qianlei on Cloud Watching Mountain. It had been more than 2 years since then. Long time no see. Why are you in the United States? Jiang Tian smiled and greeted. Jiang Tian lived alone and there were fewer and fewer old friends left. Moreover, Jiang Tian's impression of this girl was not bad. Yeah, what a coincidence. Han Qingli didn't expect that Jiang Tian still remembered her. She was very excited. Who would have thought that he was the #1 person in the world, and even France and the European Union were no match for him? She moved closer and lowered her voice. Master Kong, no, Jiang Tian, I'm afraid it's not safe for you to come to the United States. Her beautiful eyes curved into a beautiful crescent shape, and she smiled brightly. Jinneng Group has a branch in the United States. Why don't you be my assistant? With a few simple words, Jiang Tian had a good impression of her. She was aware of the potential conflict between Jiang Tian and the United States, which meant that she was very smart. She was willing to help Jiang Tian cover his identity, which meant that she was courageous. She wanted to let Jiang Tian go with her, which meant that she was quite smart. Okay. Jiang Tian gladly agreed. In fact, he was casting the curse from a distance. He wouldn't kill people easily and Han Qingli wasn't a big threat. When they got out of the airport, a Cadillac immediately came to pick them up. Jiang Tian and Han Qingli got in the car together. I hate that I didn't meet you before you got married. Grandmaster Jiang is such an amazing talent. Why did you get married so early? Han Qingli sighed in her heart. She still couldn't forget the wonderful feeling of being Jiang Tian's partner on Song Shuangyan's birthday party. She didn't know how many times she had thought about it. However, when old friends met, it was natural for them to talk about some of the people they knew in Yanjin. You really shocked everyone when you defeated Heavenly Master Zhang Qianlei at the cloud peak of Mount Yan last time. Many of the top young masters in Yanjin have restrained themselves a lot. They don't dare to be arrogant anymore. Instead, they focus on their careers and have created a few top companies. Han Qingli held up her slender fingers and said excitedly, "You're right." Song Shuangyan's best friend, Li Yanmei, tried her best to please Lu Yiting, but she didn't become the distributor of Heavenly Beauty. However, she became the distributor of a very strong product of the Tianjin Corporation in the United States, and became one of the top 100 companies in the country. Jiang Tian stood at the side, not saying a word, listening silently. In fact, he only had a vague impression of those young masters and socialites in Yanjin. Charlene, one of the 4 beauties of Yanjin, has become your idol. She cried in front of her father for a long time, and wanted to marry you. She even asked me for your contact information, and asked about your horoscope and hobbies. Han Qingli covered her mouth and giggled. Do you want to think about it? You're the king of a country anyway. You can have a few wives and concubines. It's not a problem. In fact, Jiang Tian had even forgotten who Charlene was. However, he still said seriously, but after 100 years, a beauty will become a skeleton. If I marry them, I have to be responsible for them. I can't just watch them die 100 years later. Even a Dao reunion perfected immortal would have a lifespan of tens of thousands of years, let alone a true immortal. If a true immortal reached the level of true immortal, their lifespan would be immeasurably long. Those who could be partners with them would either be Tao reunion perfected immortals, or have a special body constitution and bloodline. Otherwise, they would only turn into a pile of yellow soil and a grave of white bones. The path of cultivation was to go against the heavens and change one's fate to reach a higher level of life. If one wanted to advance bravely, how could there be so many obstacles? Speaking of this, Han Qingli also felt that her joke was a bit too much. She smiled apologetically. What are you doing in the United States? Do you work here? Jiang Tian saw that she was embarrassed, so he changed the topic. No, I'm also here on a business trip. When I'm done, I'll return home. Han Qingli tucked a strand of hair beside her cheek behind her ear, and said with a faint smile, You're an overlord of the cultivation world, so you probably don't pay much attention to the secular world. Recently, a very powerful company has risen in the United States. It's called the Heavenly Deity Corporation. Do you still remember Charlene? The former Yanjin financial queen, who was on par with Song Shuangyan in the secular world, resigned from all her positions and joined the Heavenly Deity Corporation as the CEO of Greater China. Her eyes twinkled and there was a hint of slyness in them. I'm here to attend one of their investment meetings and see if I can get a share. Jiang Tian wasn't very interested in business matters, so he just nodded and didn't say anything. Soon the car arrived in Washington, the center of power in the United States, the most powerful country in the world. Chapter 800. Washington was very different from other cities in the United States. For example, New York was filled with skyscrapers and bustling business centers. On the other hand, there were almost no skyscrapers above 10 stories in Washington. Most of the buildings were government offices, and there were very few shops. The population was only 700,000, which gave people a cold, solemn feeling. The officials worked there, but they did not live there. They lived in Maryland, Virginia, and some even lived in places like New Jersey. They drove to and from work every day. There were still many tourists during the day. On Massachusetts Avenue not far from the White House and the Capitol, Jiang Tian and Han Qingli got off the car. Like a pair of wanderers, they walked while looking and chatting. A moment later, the White House, the Capitol and the Washington Monument made of gray marble appeared in front of them. There were many tourists in front of the Washington Monument, taking photos as souvenirs. There were also some hidden overlords patrolling. I heard from Merrill that the Universe Shield and Blue Storm had sent their overlords to guard the White House. It's true. Jiang Tian didn't need to scan them with his immortal will to find that they were full of powerful energy. They were overlords and grandmasters. Jiang Tian looked at the white dome of the Parliament building with a solemn expression on his face. It was located on the Capitol and surrounded by beautiful gardens. It was majestic and elegant and was the symbol of the United States. The building had 7 floors and represented the tallest in the country, so the other buildings in the city were 6 floors or lower. It was also located on the Capitol, which made it look like a crane in a flock of chickens. There were more than a dozen immortal state warriors stationed in Capitol Hill, and the White House as bodyguards. The ordinary guards were either mixed martial arts masters, awakened physique users, or superpowered users. There were at least a few hundred of such guards. They appeared relaxed on the outside, but were tense on the inside. Although they looked like staff members and even disguised themselves as tourists, they were actually very vigilant and concealed their killing intent. Jiang Tian realized. Many overlords weren't born naturally. Instead, they relied on advanced biological technologies such as gene editing technology and bloodline modification to forcefully create them. The most ancient sects in the world today, other than the hidden ruins of deity, are the Holy See in the West and the Brahmin in India. The United States of America will never have a chance. Jiang Tian's gaze was leisurely as he sighed in his heart. But why did the United States have the confidence to directly rebuke the Holy See and order them to seal their mountains? What we rely on is our strong national strength, especially our strong technological strength. It can mass-produce experts. Back then, the Holy See was in its heyday. There were countless immortal state warriors and powerful warriors. They suppressed the Covenant of Darkness with one hand and hunted down many vampires and werewolves until they were almost exterminated. Even the Blood Ancestor had been severely injured by St. Paul and hadn't dared to stir up trouble for hundreds of years. However, it was said that after World War II, the immortal state warriors were hunted down all over the world. The United States deployed its battleships in the Mediterranean Sea, and the United States Secretary of Defense directly barged into the Holy See of Rome with guns in his hands. He denounced the Pope's crimes in front of him and ordered the Holy See to seal off its mountain and never interfere with the secular regime. It was said that at that time, the Pope was so angry that he vomited blood, but in the face of the powerful United States Navy, Army and Air Force, he could only keep his mouth shut and swallow his anger. The United States was indeed powerful. However, once the Coelian system was successfully tested, Sidoni's military strength would surpass that of the United States and deter the world. With that thought in mind, Jiang Tian's lips curled into a smile and his eyes turned cold. If I want to test the Coelians successfully, the easiest way is to cast the Soul Devourer death curse on them. With that thought in mind, Jiang Tian's body shook. A vast Soul Devourer divine sense rushed toward the White House like a dark cloud. The Soul Devourer divine sense was an extremely pure soul energy. Jiang Tian had obtained it from Nieming Yuan's divine soul. Not only could it devour soul energy, but it was also an excellent way to cast all kinds of curses. At that moment, the President, the Secretary of State, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and many other senior officials in the White House felt a chill run down their spines. Strange. Why do I feel like the temperature has dropped a lot in an instant? In the President's office, President Bush frowned. Is the temperature of the air conditioner too low? I feel it too. This is too strange. It's creepy. The Secretary of State also felt very uncomfortable. It was as if a gust of cold wind had blown past. We are talking about Sidoni's Coelian. That strange-looking lump of metal. The Minister of Foreign Affairs was a little thick-skinned. He joked. Maybe the Coelian has frightened us? You know, all fear comes from the unknown. At that moment, the Minister of Defense said in a deep voice, Jiang Taichu's tricks are too unpredictable. He's simply too unpredictable. We must be on high alert. The Minister of Defense, right, was already 70 years old. During the Cuban Missile Crisis, he was promoted to Rear Admiral at the age of 30, and was already a senior advisor to President Kennedy. He had experienced the Cold War, commanded the Korean War, the Vietnam War, and the Gulf War. He was experienced, vigorous, and ruthless. He had already retired, but the crisis brought about by Sidoni forced President Bush to restart this old general. His eyes were as sharp as knives, and his face was tough and resolute. He was dressed in a military uniform, and his waist was as straight as a spear. He said coldly, "The Coelian is even more serious than the Cuban Missile Crisis. It is likely to be a weapon that transcends its time. Its power may exceed nuclear weapons. It is an unprecedented threat to America's security. We must adopt a more aggressive strategy." As soon as he said that, all the high-ranking officials looked at each other in dismay. They all looked at the old general of the Eagle sect in shock. Beyond nuclear weapons? How is that possible? The new director of the CIA was a dove. He smiled and said, "According to our intelligence, Sidoni did not mine or import any radioactive materials such as uranium or, but they purchased a lot of aviation metals." The Minister of Defense, right, sneered. This metal can withstand the high temperature caused by the explosion of 30 times the speed of sound in the atmosphere. Also, gentlemen, as I said, this is an unknown weapon that is likely to be more powerful than nuclear weapons. The possibility of that is very low. The Minister of Foreign Affairs shook his head and said with disdain, "Sidoni's National Academy of Sciences has only been established a short time ago. They are too weak. How can they create a weapon that surpasses nuclear weapons? Even if the possibility is 1 in 10,000, we will not allow it to exist." The Minister of Defense said heavily, "We can only eliminate Sidoni. There is no other way. Mr. President, Mr. Minister, I suggest that we join forces with the Heavenly Gods Corporation, activate the Universe Shield, and carry portable weapons of mass destruction to eliminate Kang Taechu. General Kane stood up and said coldly with a murderous aura. Once Kang Taechu is dead, we can easily destroy the Koalian and Tianqing school with nuclear weapons. I second that. An Air Force lieutenant general straightened his body and stood up. I second that too. A major general of the army also proposed. For a moment, many of the core forces of the Pentagon stood up. They were ready to fight, and their faces were determined. President Bush pondered for a moment and then nodded. Yes, at least on the surface, the Universe Shield is an organization that has nothing to do with the U.S. government. The new director of the CIA was a puppet of the California Consortium and Marshall. At this moment he frowned and said, I don't think we should start a fight. Have you seen what happened to the European Union? Kang Taechu has never shown any hostility to the United States. In fact, he is very friendly. We don't need to provoke an overlord who has surpassed the immortal state. The CIA needs to investigate further to find out what the Koalian system is. He laughed and said, according to previous intelligence, the Koalian system is just a landscape building. It has no destructive power. After all, there is no weapon of mass destruction in the world that has been exposed to the public like this. Haha, do you really think it is a landscape? Are you kidding me? What kind of landscape could produce such a terrifying plasma stream with such obvious fluctuations that it could be detected from 10 kilometers away? Many Pentagon generals glared at the CIA director. This man was Sidoni's lackey and had received a lot of benefits from the Marshall family. The CIA can stop working now. Defense Secretary Wright slammed the table and said sarcastically, the CIA is just a lackey of the Marshall family. Do you want my intelligence agency to investigate you? What you are doing is treason. Don't cross the line. His powerful aura made the CIA director sweat profusely, and he was tongue-tied. The defense secretary ignored him and looked at him coldly. This time, the California Consortium, the Marshall family and the Congress won't be able to stop us. Because the Universe Shield didn't take a single cent from the U.S. Treasury. All their funding comes from the Celestial God Corporation. He was murderous and his eyes were firm. His voice was old, but his tone was sonorous and powerful. Investigate Kang Taechu immediately. Once we find him, execute the decapitation plan. Yes, sir. The general's spirits were lifted, and they all stood up. The CIA director's eyes narrowed and his face paled. They were going to kill Kang Taechu. How was he going to tell the Marshall family about this? I am afraid that the Pentagon Intelligence Agency is already monitoring me. This is really troublesome. Chapter 801. Haha, you want to kill me? You must be tired of living. At this moment, Jiang Tian had already cast the soul-devouring death curse on many politicians in the White House and the Capitol. He withdrew his divine sense and walked into the distance unhurriedly. However, he couldn't be bothered to kill these ministers and generals. They were Jiang Tian's hostages. They were Jiang Tian's means to deter and suppress the other party for the Koalian experiment. Killing them for no reason wouldn't have any deterrent effect. Moreover, the state was an orderly system. If they died, someone would immediately take their place. Therefore, Jiang Tian didn't need to do anything now. As for how they would attack Jiang Tian, that was impossible. Not to mention, they didn't dare to use nuclear weapons easily. Even if they did, they wouldn't be able to kill Jiang Tian. In fact, they didn't even have a chance to do anything. The soul-devouring death curse that Jiang Tian had cast not only controlled life and death, but also had a monitoring function. In other words, the soul-devouring death curse that was left on them was connected to Jiang Tian's second primordial spirit. Their every move and even their thoughts couldn't escape Jiang Tian's monitoring. If there was a motive to use nuclear weapons, Jiang Tian would immediately turn the White House, Capitol Hill, and the Pentagon into their graves and stop the entire United States. As for the Heavenly Gods Corporation, Jiang Tian's face revealed a thoughtful expression. Where did they come from? Did they provide funds to SHILD? Was a newly established high-tech company more daring and stronger than the Pentagon? Han Qingli saw that Jiang Tian didn't say anything and kept looking at the White House, the Capitol, and other buildings. Although she didn't understand what Jiang Tian was doing, she didn't dare to disturb him. When Jiang Tian looked away, she smiled and said, Jiang Tian, where are we going next? To the Pentagon and the Langley building. Jiang Tian's expression was calm as he walked towards the car. Han Qingli hurriedly helped Jiang Tian open the car door. Then Jiang Tian cast a soul-devouring spell outside the Pentagon and the Langley building, and cast many death curses. In fact, Jiang Tian had even cursed some important politicians who stayed at home, because they had something to do. In this way, in the span of a single day, the White House, the Supreme Court, the Congress, and even some of the hawkish tycoons, the lives and deaths of thousands of top politicians and dignitaries in the United States were firmly in the hands of Jiang Tian. By the time he was done, night had already fallen. In a Western restaurant in Washington, Han Qingli was honored to treat Jiang Tian to a meal. Jiang Tian, tomorrow night, the Celestial God Corporation is holding a meeting in New York, and it's for the Wuxia market. Do you want to come with me? After the meal, Han Qingli's beautiful eyes suddenly flashed, full of anticipation and nervousness. She knew that Jiang Tian was the kind of overlord who controlled a country and a sect. It was very abrupt for her to invite Jiang Tian to accompany her. However, she really couldn't control her love for Jiang Tian. Staying with Jiang Tian always made her feel refreshed and her heart was calm. It was as if Jiang Tian had an otherworldly aura. Okay. But he didn't expect that Jiang Tian would actually happily agree. Really? Great. Han Qingli was dazed, then she waved her fist. She was overjoyed and couldn't believe it. It was as if she had won the lottery. However, you know that the United States is very hostile towards me. If they find out about our relationship, they'll definitely kill me. If they find out, you might have to terminate your cooperation with the United States and lose this market. Jiang Tian smiled. In fact, Jiang Tian was testing. Once his coalition made a move, the Celestial God Corporation would have to give up, and the United States wouldn't dare to make a move. In fact, Han Qingli wasn't in any danger. So what if I lose it? Han Qingli smiled sweetly and said, following closely, Grandmaster Jiang will be able to eat until his stomach is round. Don't be too greedy. Jiang Tian was relieved after hearing her words. The two of them immediately drove to New York City and finally arrived in the middle of the night. Jiang Tian looked at the night scenery outside the window calmly. The famous Wall Street was actually short, narrow, and even a little gloomy. However, this small street was the heart of the American economy. Billions of dollars were traded every day, controlling the American economy and the world's financial system. Now, Chen Zhiming's One-Eye Fund had a place on the same level as Morgan and Goldman Sachs. The United Nations headquarters stood on 42nd Street. Times Square was actually only the size of a palm. The 42nd Street can be said to be the epitome of the United States, full of contradictions. It's a bit absurd, Han Qingli said as they passed by. In the United Nations building, diplomats are seriously discussing the issue of world peace every day. But on both sides of the street, there are many women's shops that use all kinds of methods to attract customers. Han Qingli had a decently sized apartment in Manhattan with elegant decorations. She only lived there when she came to the United States for business. Usually it was empty, but she had a maid to clean it. After washing up, Jiang Tian went into his room and scanned the entire New York City with his divine sense. However, he didn't find any overlord suspected to be from the Heavenly Gods Corporation. The next morning, Jiang Tian received a call from Yi Zhantian. Master, I didn't do well. There was a serious mistake. What's the matter? Jiang Tian looked indifferent. Lu Xingua and Song Beishan have escaped the surveillance of the Long Formation and many agents and escaped to the United States. Before that, their assets were all transferred abroad through special channels. His tone was full of shame and anxiety. Lu Xingua used to be in an important position and has a lot of confidential information. If he leaks it to the Pentagon, it will cause a terrible loss. They're in the United States. What do the higher-ups think? Jiang Tian asked. The big shots in the sea are furious, Yi Zhantian said. But all evidence of Lu Xingua and Song Beishan has been destroyed. There is nothing we can do. What do you think? Jiang Tian asked. Of course, We must kill them, Yi Zhantian said with hatred. These two betrayed our country and our people. How can we let them live? But they have now contacted the higher-ups of the United States and probably have the protection of the CIA and Blue Storm. If the long formation is discovered, it will be very troublesome. I'll take care of this matter. For the sake of our country and our family, I must kill these two, Jiang Tian said coldly. If you want to avenge your humiliation, you can come to me. I'm in the United States. Master, you're in the United States? Yi Zhantian was shocked. That was the forbidden land of the Dark Overlords. In the past, the United States hunted down immortal realm experts all over the world. The next moment he said energetically, "Okay, I'll be there as soon as possible. Collect their bodies." Jiang Tian hung up the phone, his eyes flashing with murderous intent. In the evening, Jiang Tian and Han Qingli rushed to the venue of the Celestial Gods Corporation's investment fair. Not far from Wall Street, 16 skyscrapers were arranged majestically. Rockefeller Building. It is said that the Celestial Gods Corporation has a long history. Even the founder of the Rockefeller Corporation had received help from them. Han Qingli was wearing a black, shoulder-length evening dress, revealing her snow-white back. Exuding the fragrance of expensive perfume, she was like a black rose blooming in the dark night. But the Celestial Gods Corporation is very mysterious. The specifics of the higher-ups and office locations are unknown. Most of the events they hold are supported by the old tycoons, such as Morgan, Rockefeller, DuPont, Mellon, and so on. They are even proud to hold the events of the Celestial Gods Corporation. This time, Rockefeller is providing the venue, DuPont is providing technical support, and Morgan is paying. It seems that this mysterious Celestial Gods Corporation has shares in these tycoons, controlling them through the shadow companies. Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes and nodded. It is even possible that he is the biggest tycoon behind the scenes in the United States, the true master of the United States. The White House and Capitol Hill are just puppets. The Celestial Gods Corporation's investment fair was held in a large hall on the 28th floor of the Rockefeller Building. "Sir, miss, please come in." After checking the invitation, the attendant led the two into the hall. The hall was resplendent and brightly lit. Elegantly dressed and courteously dressed attendants walked through it. This was an investment fair aimed at Wuxia. More than half of the people present were Chinese. They were still in the middle of the reception before the investment fair. There was a group of Chinese elites. The men were dressed in suits and leather shoes while the women were dressed in evening gowns. They were dressed to the nines. They were either sitting, standing, or holding a glass of red wine as they conversed in private. "Jiang Tian, why are you here?" Someone suddenly cried out in surprise. Jiang Tian turned around and saw Lu Yuting walking over gracefully with a glass of red wine in her hand. Her face was filled with joy. "You're also here for the investment fair?" Jiang Tian was surprised, but then he understood. Lu Yuting's Heavenly Beauty was one of the top cosmetics companies in Wuxia. Perhaps the Celestial Gods Corporation had taken a liking to her sales system. "The Celestial Gods Corporation has been very strong recently," Lu Yuting worriedly said. "The cosmetics they've invented are on par with our products. Even if I don't represent their products, I still want to get a feel of their foundation." Jiang Tian nodded, looked at a person behind Lu Yuting, and said with a smile, "Longsheng, you're here too." "Jiang Tian, I've already successfully detoxified, although the process was very difficult. But in the end it was a success." Chen Longsheng smiled at Jiang Tian. His eyes were filled with gratitude, but there were also some complicated emotions. "Right now I'm helping Lu Yuting. I'm an independent director of her company." Chen Longsheng knew some of Jiang Tian's background. The current Jiang Tian was too far away from him. Just now, he was hesitating whether to greet Jiang Tian or not. Who knew if Jiang Tian still cared about him? He hadn't expected Jiang Tian to take the initiative to greet him. Chen Longsheng was truly grateful. "That's good." Jiang Tian patted his shoulder, feeling gratified and happy from the bottom of his heart. Chen Longsheng was no fool. As a top student, he should be able to shine. Chen Longsheng has brought a lot of investment to Heavenly Beauty. Well done. Lu Yiting praised. Chapter 802. No, no, no. Compared to Jiang Tian's achievements, I'm still far behind. Chen Longsheng waved his hands. He was from a branch of the Chen family, a martial arts family in Yanjin. He was a distant descendant of the Chen family. After knowing that Chen Longsheng and Jiang Tian were classmates, Chen Zifen saw him in a new light and made him the head of the investment department of the Chen family group. He became the core and direct descendant of the Chen family. Therefore, he knew a lot of unknown information and knew Jiang Tian's true identity. Dragon warrior, grandson of the Zhang family, crown prince of the Jiang family. Each of these identities was more terrifying than the last. Especially when he killed Bai Tianlei and his wife, suppressed the 6 martial arts families in Yanjin, defeated Zhang Qianlei, and trampled on the Lu and Song families. This matter was still secretly circulating in the upper-class society of Yanjin. It was a taboo among taboos. However, with his circle, that was all he could come into contact with. There were some secrets that Chen Zifen did not dare to tell him. Seeing that there were so many classmates present, Jiang Tian gave Han Qingli a look. The latter immediately understood and walked to the side as if nothing had happened. She chatted with a few American friends. Jiang Tian, you're still alive. I've been trying to contact you, but I haven't heard from you. What surprised Jiang Tian even more was that Jean Gage was also there. She came up to Jiang Tian and gave him a big hug. This girl was still so fierce. Although she was wearing an evening dress according to social etiquette, she had short hair like a boy. Because of the back and shoulders of the evening dress, her airport chest was even more exposed. There was a reason why Jean Gage said that. At that time, Li Yanmei, Lu Liwei, and the others wanted to buy beauty by force and sent Wei San to cause trouble. Jiang Tian trampled all the way. First he trampled on Wei San. In the end, even Lu Liwei was dealt with after he arrived. At that time, Jean Gage and the others were shocked, but the more they thought about it, the more they felt that something was wrong. Jiang Tian stepped on Lu Liwei. In fact, after Jiang Tian trampled on the Lu and Song families, it caused a huge stir in the upper-class society of Yanjin. However, Jean Gage was only from a slightly wealthy family. Her level was too far apart, and she could not grasp the real situation at all. Later on, the Medicine King Group's withdrawal from the market also confirmed her and many of her classmates' speculations. It was very likely that Jiang Tian had offended both the Lu and Song clans because of this, so he had no choice but to do this. As for Jiang Tian's development in Sidoni, she only knew that the Medicine King Group's products were now sold all over the world. But it seemed that they had recently been attacked by the European Union. She didn't know anything else. Nonsense, of course he's alive. Am I a ghost? Seeing his old classmate, Jiang Tian's eyes revealed a trace of warmth. Why are you here? Is your family in the logistics industry? And the Tianqin Corporation seems to be a biotechnology company. Jiang Tian felt apologetic towards Lu Yiting, Jean Gage, and the other university classmates whom he had a good relationship with. Jiang Tian could be said to have enemies everywhere. He was afraid that they would be implicated, so he deliberately distanced himself from them and kept his distance. The Celestial Deity Corporation is involved in a wide range of things. Jean Gage said, I saw that Yiting applied to participate in the investment fair, so I applied to try. I didn't expect it to actually work out. There's another annoying guy over there. He's also here to be a bystander. She pursed her lips and pointed behind her with her thumb. Wang Jie, Jiang Tian's university roommate, was a smooth and slick person who had previously pursued Lu Yiting in Yanjing. However, Wang Jie seemed to have calmed down a lot and looked dignified, but there was a hint of wariness in his eyes when he looked at Jiang Tian. He was holding a tall, fair-skinned girl with a bright temperament. The girl was wearing designer clothes from Louis Vuitton and had a faint smile on her face. She seemed to keep people at arm's length. Well, this investment fair has become our classmates' reunion. Jiang Tian smiled, but a trace of darkness and vigilance flashed in his heart. This was too much of a coincidence. Could it be that those guys from the Pentagon had some kind of plan? Seeing Jiang Tian smile, Wang Jie finally dared to walk over and greet him with a smile. Jiang Tian, long time no see. This is my girlfriend, Fei Rong. She is the daughter of the Fei family in Yanjing. She is engaged. Jiang Tian nodded slightly. There wasn't a big family with the surname Fei in Yanjing. They were probably second or third-tier families. At Jiang Tian's level, even the President of the United States of America and the President of the European Union didn't have to give face to him. So why would he care about the daughter of a small family? So, this is the young master Jiang Tian that you always talk about. I didn't see him that much. Wang Jie's girlfriend Fei Rong sized up Jiang Tian with a hint of suspicion. Her father was a vice minister, but in Yanjing, where there were many senior officials, they were only third or fourth-tier families. Not to mention the martial arts families like Chen Zifan and Lin Fingmian, there was still a big gap between them and the secular families like Lu Zhenghua and Song Beishan. Fei Rong had never seen Jiang Tian before, so it was impossible for her to connect Jiang Tian to the Master Kong who had defeated Wuxia. Seeing this, Wang Jie smiled awkwardly at Jiang Tian. Jiang Tian vaguely understood and nodded slightly. In fact, Wang Jie had a high EQ and was good at social climbing. He had always wanted to use women to climb up the social ladder. He had also tried to court Lu Yiting before. Now that he had caught up with Fei Rong, it was considered a success. However, even though his family was rich, marrying Fei Rong would be considered a social climb, and he would inevitably be looked down upon. Therefore, in order to keep up appearances, he often talked about how powerful his roommate, Jiang Tian, was and how he had beaten up the young master of the Lu family. But he didn't know anything else. Seeing that Jiang Tian was just an ordinary person, Fei Rong couldn't help but feel disappointed. They chatted for a while and Fei Rong asked teasingly, "Jiang Tian, I heard that you are very powerful. Where are you now?" "A small country in Africa." Jiang Tian smiled faintly. Today he had come here to find out more about the Heavenly Gods Corporation, so he didn't want to attract too much attention. "Oh." Fei Rong suddenly came to a realization and said, "Oh." A trace of contempt flashed through the depths of her beautiful eyes. Africa's economy was backward, its environment was terrible, and it was plagued by plagues. What future did he have there? Sidonie had developed rapidly in the past 2 years, becoming a hotspot for immigrants. However, that was only for those who had sharp eyes and quick reactions. Many people still hadn't realized Sidonie's potential. Moreover, the rise of Sidonie's country couldn't change the overall impression that people had of Africa. Most importantly, Fei Rong didn't connect the small country in Africa that Jiang Tian had mentioned with Sidonie. As for Wang Jie, his eyes widened in surprise. He raised his glass and toasted seriously. "Jiang Tian, we are very relieved and happy that Lu Yiting is able to receive your support." Everyone didn't understand what he meant, but Jiang Tian understood. He smiled and took a sip of champagne. After downing the wine, Wang Jie felt much lighter, as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Jiang Tian didn't feel any love for Lu Yiting. He only felt that they were classmates. Even so, Wang Jie's pursuit of Lu Yiting in Yanjing, and his bullying of Jiang Tian still made him uneasy. Now that Jiang Tian had drunk this glass of wine, the matter was over. Given Jiang Tian's status and ability, he probably wouldn't make a fuss about it. Wang Jie often fooled around outside, and tried to curry favor with the rich and powerful. With a relaxed mood, he quickly formed a small circle with Jiang Tian as the core, creating an atmosphere. It was just as Jiang Tian had imagined. The few students really looked like they were having a gathering, and started chatting together. However, during this time, Fei Rong went to the washroom. When she came back, she said unnaturally, "Wang Jie, a few rich heirs from Yanjing are also at the party. They were very nice to me when I was young. Come with me and give them a toast." Jean Gage smiled and said, "Since they are all friends from Yanjing, let's get to know each other." She had a carefree personality, but she didn't expect her words to be so abrupt. Just as Lu Yiting was about to move, Fei Rong said with a troubled expression, "These rich heirs have a very high status in Yanjing. There are also a few people from the American financial groups present. They can make me work 20 years less just by moving their mouths. Actually, I only lived in the same compound as them when I was young. It's still a problem whether they remember me or not." Then, she sighed faintly, as if she was lamenting the gap between her and them. As soon as she said that, the atmosphere in the room became cold. Lu Yiting froze on the spot. She didn't know whether to leave or return. Although Fei Rong's words were tactful, everyone understood. She was saying that even she might not be able to make friends with them, let alone them. Are they the top few in Yanjing? Jean Gage asked with a complicated look in her eyes. Fei Rong didn't say it directly. She nodded. Everyone was silent. Although the Fei family wasn't a top family, Fei Rong's father was a deputy minister, so her standards were not low. Those who could make her try her best to make friends with, even if it was a bit difficult, were the sons of the top political and business families. Such a top-notch noble was naturally not someone they could compare to. It was like the difference between the clouds and the mud. The difference was too great. Rashly going over to propose a toast was simply asking for humiliation. Wang Jie also looked troubled. The idea of climbing up the social ladder was deeply rooted in his mind, but he was much more mature than before. Now, everyone was talking about their friendship with Jiang Tian as the center. The atmosphere in the small circle was very good. It would be too snobbish of them to leave the small circle and give a toast. Unknowingly, he had offended Jiang Tian, Lu Yiting and the others. However, Fei Rong was right. It was indeed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make friends with the top young masters in Yanjing. That was why he was in a dilemma. At that moment, Fei Rong glanced at Jiang Tian and frowned. She urged impatiently, "Wang Jie, hurry up. Don't waste time." At that moment, Lu Yiting and Jean Gage looked at each other with complicated expressions. They were very unhappy. That was too harsh. It was as if Wang Jie and Jiang Tian were wasting time chatting and not worth it. Forget it. We can chat any time. Go. This is a rare opportunity. Everyone was speechless. In the end, it was still Jiang Tian who smiled freely and encouraged him. He didn't plan to help Wang Jie in the first place. Since that was the case, snakes had their own ways and mice had their own ways. Naturally, they could not stop him from clinging on to others. Chapter 803. That's right. Hurry up and go. Come back after you're done talking to them. Lu Yiting also hurriedly smiled and encouraged them. In the end, Wang Jie apologized with a smile and walked over with Fei Rong. Chen Longsheng shook his head and sighed after the two of them walked away. Sigh, Wang Jie's wife is not simple. Everyone could see that Fei Rong was a typical snob. She was overly shrewd, despised the poor, and loved the rich. Women like her were easy to do good things, but they were even easier to do bad things. Lu Yiting smiled and said, "If we're not family, we won't enter the same house. That's not strange at all." Jean Gage downed the red wine in her glass and gritted her teeth. In this world, it's impossible to climb up without backing. Her family had also gone through some changes in the past 2 years. Online shopping and logistics had been developing rapidly in the past few years. Her family's logistics company was doing well, but it was suddenly acquired by a powerful company. Later, she found out that the company was backed by the Crown Prince. If she did not sell the company to them, she could forget about running it. Jean Gage's boyfriend also came over and added a few words. The young man was called Su Jin. He was a university lecturer who was quiet and honest. His family background was ordinary. It seemed that Jean Gage's state of mind had changed a lot after going through so many twists and turns. She was a bit down to earth now. Han Qingli was listening from afar. Suddenly, she looked at Jiang Tian as if she was asking for Jiang Tian's opinion. However, Jiang Tian shook his head without hesitation. With his ability, it was only a matter of words for him to help his old classmates. He did not even need them to show up. It was enough for the Zhang family, the Chen family, and the Han family of Yanjing to show up. Everyone has their own path in life. It might not be a good thing to tie them too tightly to me. Jiang Tian sighed in his heart. However, in less than 5 minutes, Wang Jie and Fei Rong returned in a sorry state. Although the two of them pretended as if nothing had happened, anyone could see the shame and anger in their eyes. Without waiting for Jiang Tian and the others to ask, Wang Jie shook his head and smiled bitterly. It was our wishful thinking. They didn't know us at all. Before we got close, we were stopped by a few white bodyguards. Fei Rong's pretty face turned red and white. She looked very embarrassed. She panted with anger and didn't say anything. Lu Yiting hurriedly comforted him, and Chen Longsheng felt even more distressed. Back then, he had been secretly harmed by his brothers in the family. He was addicted to drugs and became a cripple. That was a period of darkness where there was no light and no dignity. If it weren't for Jiang Tian's warning, he might have really been ruined. Great figures had limited energy and precious time. They would never waste any time on an ant in their eyes. Chen Longsheng had tasted the pain of being ignored by others too many times, so he knew the feeling very well. Which rich heirs and socialites from Beijing? Jiang Tian suddenly asked. Lu Qiji Song Chaoyang. Not only the eldest young master, there are also several super big bosses, their fathers. Fei Rong looked at Jiang Tian in astonishment, but in the end still said it out loud. Lu Zhengguo's great-grandson Lu Qiji, Song Beishan's grandson Song Chaoyang. Next to her, Jin Gij had already screamed. Back then, the Lu family's crown prince, the most outstanding Lu Lixuan, was killed by Jiang Tian with a palm of thunder. The Song family's crown prince Song Poju was also killed by Jiang Tian. But the Song and Lu families both had a long history. They had spread their branches and leaves, and had already formed a colossus, a spectacular sight. In terms of talent cultivation, such a big family did not only cultivate one or two people, but also formed an echelon, cluster, and structure. It involved all aspects, and was divided all over the world. Otherwise, once the heir of the family was eliminated, there would be no successor, and the power would fall. Lu Qiji was Lu Lixuan's cousin. Back then, he represented the Lu family in the United States, and was the backbone of the Lu family's overseas power. He was very popular in the upper class of the United States, and was able to converse with the DuPont and Rockefeller consortium. Later, Lu Lixuan was killed, and the Lu family withdrew from politics in an orderly manner, transforming into a business family. Lu Qiji returned to Yanjing, took over Lu Lixuan's position, tidied up the Lu family, and turned the tide. Song Chaoyang and Lu Qiji's position and experience were similar. He was also an important spy that the Song family had airdropped into the United States in the early years. He had been immersed in the upper class of the United States for many years, and was close to General Keynes, the former director of the CIB, and many first-class politicians, and helped the United States influence some domestic policies. Oh, it's them. Jiang Tian's eyes flickered with a hint of playfulness. Lu Qiji, who is Song Chaoyang? Su Jin asked curiously. When Jin Gij finished explaining in a few words, Su Jin's face turned pale with shock. Jin Gij's family also had small assets, at least hundreds of millions, and her father was also a minister-level official. But compared to such a top family in Yanjing, they were simply like beggars. After all, the Song family and the Lu family were the top forces in Wuxia, with wealth comparable to a country, and power that could overturn the government. Hearing that it was such a big shot, except for Chen Longsheng's eyes that flashed with a trace of disdain, everyone was shocked and expressed their understanding. Such a big shot was not someone that you could easily make friends with. The Fei family's background was too shallow. It was normal for them to ignore them. Drink. The most important thing is that a group of classmates met in a foreign country. How rare is that? Jin Gij smiled and tried to smooth things over. Yes, to be able to see Jiang Tian is the happiest thing in my life. Wang Jie also felt that it was normal. Originally, the gap between him and these big families was too far. Trying to make friends with them was a skill. What's there to be happy about? But Fei Rong was still furious, snorting angrily, venting her anger on Wang Jie. Isn't it because you don't have the ability, you don't have connections, and you don't even have a high-class friend? The more she thought about it, the angrier she became. She swept a disdainful glance over Jiang Tian and the others, waving her hands and shouting angrily. Every time you ask me to introduce you to others, when will you be able to make friends with a few big shots? Hanging out with friends with no status every day. You'll never be able to make a name for yourself. This sentence was tantamount to looking down on Jiang Tian and the others. It was like hitting the same boat with a pole. But she was still angry, and everyone's expression became awkward, but no one argued with her. Wang Jie even lowered his voice and tried to persuade him, apologizing to Jiang Tian and the others, and comforting his girlfriend. Fuck, this woman really knows how to talk. Jean Gage was so angry that she wanted to throw her cup. She rolled her eyes and said in a low voice. Lu Yiting was gentle and magnanimous. She quickly changed the topic to ease the awkwardness. Why did the Lu and Song families come to the United States? Fei Rong explained patiently. They have a close relationship with the Morgan, DuPont, Rockefeller and other families. These three families are actually assisting the Heavenly Gods Corporation at this investment conference. Seeing how they are chatting happily, it should be true. The Morgan family. At the mention of this name, Jiang Tian's hand that was sipping his wine paused. When the Dark Parliament assassinated Jiang Zhixing and attacked the Long Formation, the Lu and Song families had provided the relevant information. And in the United States, the DuPont, Rockefeller and Morgan families had supported the Dark Parliament. This score hadn't been settled yet. At first, Jiang Tian had thought about this secret operation. He only wanted to put the soul-swallowing death curse on the American politicians and kill the remnants of the Lu and Song families. But now that the Heavenly Gods Corporation had appeared, Jiang Tian wanted to find out the truth. The simplest way was to kill a few big shots related to them and lure them out. At this moment, a light flashed in Jiang Tian's eyes. Wang Jie was startled and quickly said, Jiang Tian, I know you have some conflicts with the Lu and Song families, but this is the United States. Let's be careful. Wang Jie meant well. Back then, Jiang Tian had beaten up Lu Liwei in Myro Ocean, but the next year, the Medicine King Group was withdrawn from the market. To Wang Jie, who didn't know the truth, it must be because the Jiang family was afraid of the Lu and Song families. A trace of worry flashed across Lu Yuting and Jean Gage's faces as they hurriedly said, Jiang Tian, why don't we leave first? Only Chen Longsheng remained silent. Jiang Tian was the grandson of the Zhang family and the prince of the Jiang family. He could mobilize the Red Wall internal guards and defeat the Song and Lu families. Even in the United States, he might not be afraid of the Song and Lu families. Why should we go? Jiang Tian smiled and said, I still have some old scores to settle with these families. I'll go and have a look. If the Lu and Song families had only been bullied in his previous life, Jiang Tian wouldn't have bothered to deal with them. After all, in this life, Jiang Tian had defeated Zhang Qianlei on the cloud-watching peak and forced the two families to withdraw from politics. Then he killed Song Shuangyan, so he had already settled the score. But then Ye Mingyuan and the Dark Parliament rose. The Song and Lu families had secretly supported them to deal with him and almost killed his father, Jiang Zhixing. So he had to settle the score. Besides, the people of Morgan, DuPont and the Rockefeller Financial Group were there. Jiang Tian had always been vengeful. Otherwise, how could he live up to the great opportunity of returning with the power of the Celestial Lord? Wang Jie, you guys go ahead. I'm going to meet the people of the Lu and Song families. Jiang Tian returned the wine cup to the waiter and said with a smile. How you want to meet them? Calm down. You have to calm down. Wang Jie was worried and hurried to catch up with him. Wang Jie, where are you going? Do you still want to make friends with them? Haven't you embarrassed yourself enough? Fei Rong clenched her teeth in anger, anxiously pulling Wang Jie away. Lu Yiting tried to calm her down. Don't worry, Miss Fei. Jiang Tian is quite influential in China. Maybe we can introduce Jiang Tian to the young masters of the Lu and Song families. Jiang Tian didn't say that he was going to kill people. Everyone naturally thought that Jiang Tian wanted to get to know them or resolve their grudges. So what if he has influence in China? Fei Rong curled her lips and said with disdain. The people of the Morgan, DuPont and Rockefeller families are there. What do you know? The Lu and Song families are just sucking up to them. Why would they care about Jiang Tian? She flung Lu Yiting's hand away. She was angry, anxious and hateful. The Lu and Song families want to make friends with the rich families of the United States. It's very important. If Jiang Tian goes to disturb them, he will be doomed. Chapter 804. As far as Fei Rong was concerned, DuPont, Rockefeller, and Morgan had risen along with the rise of the United States. They had hundreds of years of history, trillions of dollars in assets, and controlled the economic lifeline of the United States and the world. They could control politics and influence presidential elections. In 2008 and 2009, Freddie Mac, Fannie Mae, and Bear Stearns, Merrill Lynch, and other financial institutions went bankrupt, causing a global financial tsunami. However, they had asked for help from financial giants like Morgan. Morgan's influence was comparable to the U.S. Treasury and the Federal Reserve. With their full support, the United States and the global economy gradually recovered. Since 1929, these families had played a pivotal role in any of the world's Great Depression and attacks on countries other than the United States. From high-tech stocks to high oil prices, they had dominated every market operation after the Great Depression. They claimed to be experts in creating bubbles. No one was better at creating bubbles than them, and no one was better at detonating financial nuclear bombs, including major events such as the Dubai crisis that shook the world. Compared to such a colossus, not to mention Wang Jie and Fei Rong, even the Liu and Song clans were far inferior. They had to work hard to befriend them. When the Liu and Song families saw the DuPont and Morgan families who stood at the pinnacle of the United States and the world, it was as if they had seen royalty. How could they not treat them seriously and not let Jiang Tian and the others disturb them? How could Jiang Tian offend such a family? How could he disturb them? Let's go and take a look. Liu Yating and Jean Gage were also anxious after hearing the explanation. They quickly ran after Chun Fan. Jiang Tian, let's forget about it. It's just a small matter. This is the United States, not China. Wang Jie was panting and sweating profusely from the chase. This was the United States, a society ruled by law. The FBI was not to be trifled with. If Jiang Tian wanted to do something, everyone would have to bear the consequences. What's there to be afraid of in the United States? Jiang Tian smiled with disdain in his eyes. In the past, Jiang Tian would not have dared to provoke the United States. After all, it was the most powerful country in the world. However, things were different now. The lives of many politicians and officials in the United States were in his hands. If they disobeyed him, he would kill them. If they dared to provoke him, he would kill them. It's over. Brother Tian's temper is rising again. Something big was bound to happen. Someone's going to die. Seeing Jiang Tian's attitude, Wang Jie only felt his legs go soft, and the world was spinning. He complained incessantly in his heart. This time it was a Western-style cocktail party. It looked very equal, but in fact there was still an invisible barrier. Just think about it. Even a small class reunion could be divided into different classes. Those who did well, and those who did not. What's more, this was a summit gathering. When Jiang Tian arrived at the northern area of the hall, Jiang Tian was stunned. Immediately, 8 tall and imposing men in black stood horizontally and opened their arms wide, blocking the way. "Sir, what are you doing here?" They were bodyguards. Their waists were bulging, stuffed with hard weapons. Their eyes were sharp, and they had been through hundreds of battles. "Come, let's make a toast and settle a grudge." Jiang Tian was smiling casually as he looked at the people behind the bodyguards. At the same time, Lu Qiji, Song Zhaoyang, Li Yanmei, Xiaolin and a few other young people surrounded by Lu Xinghua, the head of the Lu family, and Song Beishan, the head of the Song family, were chatting with a few American tycoons. The leader of the American tycoons was a young man with blonde hair and blue eyes. This person seemed to be of mixed blood. He was handsome and tall, and he exuded the aura of a century-old rich family. His powerful aura could even suppress Lu Xinghua and Song Beishan. However, there was a hint of gloominess between his brows. "Mr. Morgan, let me make a toast to you. Thank you for helping the Lu family establish a foothold in the United States." Lu Xinghua raised his glass and said with a red face. When the Morgan Financial Group entered Wuxia's financial market, Mr. Lu had given us a lot of help. Little Morgan only took a sip of red wine. He appeared very reserved as he said, "Don't worry." Especially the reform of Wuxia's banking industry, and the listing of the 4 major banks, which made us a lot of money and helped us survive the financial crisis. He spoke in a graceful manner, speaking with ease and ease. The Morgan family has always valued friendship. Now that the Lu family and the Song family are in trouble, of course we have to help. Young Master Morgan Jr., well said. May our friendship last for eternity. Seeing this, Song Beishan, who was dressed in a decent tang suit, clapped his hands and smiled. The other young people such as Lu Qiji, Song Zhaoyang, Xiao Lin and Li Yanmei also smiled and applauded. It started when Jiang Tian defeated the Song family and the Lu family. With the support of the Morgan Financial Group, the two families began to transfer their assets overseas in an orderly manner. After a long period of time, most of the assets had been transferred. Now the two of them spent a lot of money and hired a retired CIA agent to help them get rid of the Wuxia agents who were monitoring them. They crossed the ocean and settled in the United States to obtain a green card. It was said that the higher-ups were furious about this and the big shots in the sea were about to issue a red warrant. But Song Beishan was not afraid at all. They had a lot of special information that was forbidden. If the Wuxia pushed them too hard, they would fight to the death and hand them over to the Pentagon in the United States for political asylum. But it was different from Song Beishan. Lu Jinghua felt a wave of sorrow in his heart, as he thought of the days of fear and anxiety. Back then, he fought for the Wuxia on the battlefield and climbed to a high position. He had a high position, and was a man of his word. It was for the sake of blessing the younger generation. One day, one of his sons would rise to the top of the power pyramid, and look down on the Wuxia. It even evolved into a martial arts family that lasted for hundreds of years. But now, under the pressure of Kong Teichu, they could only leave behind their decades of foundation and become homeless dogs. They came to the United States to seek refuge and live under the noses of foreigners, like the second Zhang Xiaoshui. Li Yanmei is my godgranddaughter. If she can marry the son of the DuPont family in the future, then we will be even closer. At this time, Song Beishan smiled. Next to him, Li Yanmei was holding the arm of a young man whose aura and status were second only to Morgan. She smiled until her eyes narrowed into slits. After Song Shuangyan left Yanjin, she recognized Song Beishan as her god-grandfather and became the agent of the Song family's business. She also became the agent of the Heavenly God Corporation. Now, she was on a meteoric rise and was engaged to the heir of the DuPont family. Even Morgan didn't dare to underestimate her. Congratulations, Li Yanmei. At the side, Charlene was smiling, but she felt sour and jealous in her heart. Li Yanmei was too good at flattering. Not long after she met the son of the DuPont family, she climbed into his bed and directly cut him off. Now, she could only put her eyes and hope on Morgan, but she hadn't received any obvious results yet. Morgan and DuPont were too powerful. Even 10 Lu Lishuans couldn't compare. Back then, Lu Lishuan had racked his brains and spared no effort to whip the entire Wuxia to prepare the Wuxia Renaissance Society. He just wanted to build a large consortium on the same level as the DuPont and Morgan. Some people's starting point is the end of your struggle. The large American conglomerates are too powerful. If it weren't for that damned Kong Teichu, Lu Lishuan might have already achieved great things. Many people thought of the past and sighed in their hearts with mixed feelings. However, they were able to come to the United States and cooperate with many large conglomerates, which started a new chapter. At this moment, Song Beishan was still full of pride. With a servile look, he raised his glass and praised in stuttering English. We are small people in Wuxia. We are very grateful to have the help of the DuPont, Morgan, Rockefeller, and the other young masters. Now, I propose that we toast to our international friends in the United States. Come, let's drink. Many of them were top nobles in Wuxia. Now, in front of these Americans, he was like a grandson, speaking humbly and flatteringly. The white bodyguard had seen the scene of Wang Jie being chased away before. When he saw that Jiang Tian had come with him, he immediately felt a little disdainful. He raised his hand and pointed in the direction of the door, saying arrogantly, "Ugly yellow monkey, this is a place where the rich and powerful gather. It's not a place for you to come. Get out of here immediately." In fact, as the bodyguard of the Morgan family, he was used to seeing the rich and powerful of Wuxia speaking humbly to a small bodyguard like him. Therefore, he looked down on any Wuxia people and regarded them as inferior. He was full of arrogance. "Dog, what era do you think we are in? You still want to play the Chinese and dogs are not allowed to enter game?" Jiang Tian's eyes were cold, and a slight mocking smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Jiang Tian had deep feelings for his country and his people. Even if he could cross the universe and break through the void to return to Earth and visit Wuxia, he would still not be able to do so. At this time, how could he allow this person to blaspheme the dignity of the Chinese of Wuxia? Ugly yellow monkey, what did you say? The white bodyguard was furious. He rolled up his sleeves, revealing his thick arms, and was about to attack. Get out! Jiang Tian's eyes were full of annoyance. He didn't even make a move. He just shouted softly. Clang. Jiang Tian was now at the foundation establishment stage. How powerful was the dragon roar and devil roar? The Caucasian bodyguard let out a muffled groan. Like a scarecrow that had been hit by a bullet train, he spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body was stained with blood as he flew backward and crashed onto the stage. Chapter 805. The people who came here to attend the investment banquet were all businessmen and entrepreneurs from Wuxia who had been summoned by the Song and Lu families. It seemed that a young man from Wuxia had attacked the bodyguards of the Morgan family. Li Yanmei was instantly enraged, turning her head and scolding. What are you doing? Didn't I tell you not to do anything to Morgan? Before she finished her words, she froze, staring blankly at Jiang Tian, as if looking at a monster. At this time, everyone's back was facing Jiang Tian, and they were talking with the many dignitaries of the United States. It was very noisy at the time, so no one noticed it right away. Song Beishan was in a good mood and had drunk a little too much. At this time he looked over with drunken eyes, his gaze locked onto Jiang Tian. At first he did not take it seriously, then as if he had seen a ghost in broad daylight, his eyes suddenly widened. Jiang Jiang Jiang. At this moment, Song Beishan's hot-blooded lofty aspirations turned into cold sweat. And at this time, seeing that Song Beishan's face had changed, the crowd turned their head and looked at Jiang Tian. At first glance, they saw that it was Jiang Tian. Li Yanmei, Xiaolin, Song Zhaoyang, including Lu Qiji, all had a drastic change of expression, as if they had seen a ghost. No one thought that Jiang Tian would appear here. Where was this? The most powerful country in the world, the United States. This was the forbidden area of the strong people of the dark world. Jiang Tian dared to come here. Jiang Tian, Master Kong, why are you here? Xiaolin suppressed the shock in her heart, smiled and raised her glass. She had little interaction with Jiang Tian, and had the least conflicts, so she dared to greet Jiang Tian. Haha, to kill a few people who should be killed. Jiang Tian was calm and indifferent, as if he was discussing the price of vegetables in the market. Upon hearing this, the crowd's face changed dramatically, and then their expressions were different, and their reactions were also different. Da-da-da. Several disciples of the Song family and Lu family who had seen Jiang Tian's power on the cloud-watching peak. Their teeth were chattering, and their legs were as weak as noodles. You chased him all the way here? How dare you? Lu Jinghua glared at Jiang Tian like an old wolf, his eyes filled with hatred and cruelty. After all, Jiang Tian had once killed Lu Lishuan, Lu Liwei, and a few other great-great-grandsons, and even forced him out of Wuxia. How could he not hate him? However, in the depths of his eyes, there was a trace of fear that he was unwilling to admit. After all, Jiang Tian had defeated the Gathering of Darkness, and was known as the most powerful overlord in the dark world. He had killed thousands of European dignitaries, and even the European Union didn't dare to resist. How could he not be afraid? Jiang Tian, how could you do this? Let's hurry back. When Wang Jie saw Jiang Tian send a person flying, he immediately became anxious and shouted with cold sweat on his forehead. However, when he saw the Wuxia bosses looking at Jiang Tian with fear, he was puzzled. Jiang Tian ignored him. He looked at Song Beishan and said slowly, Song Beishan, you were the one who told the Gathering of Darkness about the long formation, weren't you? The Song family bullied me, humiliated me and lied to me. I defeated Zhang Qianlei and took back what you owed me, so we didn't owe each other anything. I've done my best for the Song family. However, the Song family colluded with the Gathering of Darkness to deal with my disciples and the Wuxia Long formation when I was in seclusion. Every word Jiang Tian said was like a heavy blow to Song Beishan's chest, making his face turn paler and paler. When Jiang Tian finished, Song Beishan's face was as pale as a sheet of paper. He was covered in cold sweat, and his body couldn't stop trembling. His legs were weak, and he almost fell to the ground. His eyes were filled with fear, and he stepped back in horror. Master Kong, don't accuse me without any evidence. Lu Xingguo was indeed a veteran who had been on the battlefield for decades. He remained calm even when facing Jiang Tian. He put his hands behind his back, straightened his body and frowned. Besides, this is the United States of America, a society ruled by law. You have no right to speak. If you didn't do it, why did you come to the United States? Isn't it good to be a local tyrant in China? Why did you come here to be the henchman of foreigners? Jiang Tian's face was filled with ridicule as he said lazily. His words made Lu Xingguo and the others blush. They were so angry that they almost vomited blood. I know you're powerful, but this is the United States of America. What the hell do you want? Lu Xingguo shouted. Jiang Tian's eyes fell on Lu Xingguo for the first time. He said slowly, as cold as a knife. Lu Xingguo, I haven't settled the score with you yet. Didn't you tell the gathering of dark creatures about the location of Mount Shuzame? Didn't you tell them about my father's schedule? Song Beishan widened his eyes and looked at Lu Xingguo in disbelief. Old Lu, is this true? That's Song Shuangyan's training ground. Beishan, we're facing a powerful enemy. I'll explain it to you later. Lu Xingguo said with an unnatural face. I, Jiang Tian, have always been vengeful and never tolerate. What's more, you've lost your integrity in your old age and become traitors to the country. Do you have the courage to resist my execution? Jiang Tian narrowed his eyes and said indifferently. Hearing this, Lu Xingguo and Song Beishan's faces changed. They knew how terrifying Jiang Tian was. Lu Xingguo's face was cloudy. After a long time he sighed and said, Master Kong, there must be some misunderstanding. I hope you'll think twice before you act. Investigate carefully. Besides, you're no longer a citizen of Wuxia. What right do you have to intervene in Wuxia's affairs? I'm not a citizen of Wuxia? No, although I'm not a citizen of Wuxia, I've always been a citizen of Wuxia. Jiang Tian was resolute and decisive. He snorted coldly and said, I'm going to intervene in this matter today. Do you think no one can stop you just because you've escaped to the United States? Then, Morgan stepped forward with one hand in his pocket, and the other holding a glass of wine. He took a sip and said proudly, Mr. Wuxia seems to have some old grudges with Mr. Lu. He said arrogantly, This is the United States. But this is America. This is a banquet held by the Celestial Gods Corporation, the Morgan family, and the other two families. Please don't cause trouble here. Please leave. Seeing Morgan stand up for Chen Fan, everyone was excited, as if they had found a powerful backer. Li Yanmei smiled and said, Jiang Tian, you're too naive. Do you know where you are? The United States of America, the most powerful country in the world, is not a place for you to do whatever you want. Back in Yanjin, she had been humiliated by Jiang Tian. She was scared of Jiang Tian back then, but things were different now. Of course, Li Yanmei knew Jiang Tian's strength. He could fly, burrow, and control lightning. But in her opinion, the United States of America was the place where immortal state warriors died. It was a forbidden place for overlords. Could Jiang Tian withstand nuclear weapons? Could he withstand the most powerful American army in the world? Democracy in the United States was only a sham. A democracy that belonged to the upper class. The United States of America was dominated by the Morgan family, the DuPont family, and the Rockefeller family. Would he dare to provoke the upper class in the United States of America? The only consequence of provoking them was death. In fact, other than Song Beishan and Lu Zhenyu, most of the other powerful people in Yanjin had the same mentality. Seeing Morgan stand up for him, they felt relieved. They thought that Jiang Tian had to admit defeat in the face of Morgan's power. Let me out. Do you know who I am and what my trump card is? Unexpectedly, Jiang Tianli ignored her. He sipped his red wine and chuckled. I'm sorry. Even if the family leader of the Morgan family was here, he wouldn't dare to disrespect me like this. How dare a family whose life is in my hands provoke me? Do you want to die? Little Morgan probably hadn't seen his photo before, and didn't know his background. Jiang Tian heard him ask Li Yanmei about his background just now. But these days he had killed so many people in Europe that blood flowed like a river. It was understandable that the other families didn't know. After all, the European Union was also very sensitive about this matter. They had blocked the news and tried to suppress it. Only the national intelligence agencies and large tycoons knew. But the Morgan family, as a family that supported the Dark Parliament and had a relationship with the Heavenly God Corporation, should know Jiang Tian's background. But Morgan wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he was so arrogant. The only explanation was that he and the entire Morgan family thought that Chen Fan might come to the United States and come to their nest. They didn't know who he was at all. What did you say? Little Morgan was enraged and pointed at Jiang Tian. He took a step forward and was about to fall out with Jiang Tian. Kneel. Jiang Tian didn't change his expression. He casually swatted him down, as if he were swatting a fly. Boom. Morgan's knees went soft and he knelt on the ground. Then he prostrated himself on the ground. What did you do to me? Little Morgan cried out miserably, not daring to believe it. The other party didn't even touch him, but he felt as if there were 10,000 tons of mountains on his shoulders. He couldn't help but kneel down. No matter how hard he struggled, it was useless. This made him feel deeply humiliated and unbearable. Everyone present was dumbfounded. They looked at this scene with fear and disbelief. This was little Morgan, the future heir of the Morgan family, one of the most powerful people in the United States. He could talk to the President and Speaker of the United States as equals. What kind of glorious status was this? What kind of noble status was this? Not to mention the Wuxia people, even in the United States, no one dared to provoke him. But now this young man from Wuxia didn't care about his identity and slapped him to the ground. This wasn't just insulting little Morgan, but insulting the Morgan family, and even the entire upper class of America. The upper class families in the American upper class cooperated and helped each other a lot. Most of them had always been hostile to the Wuxia and mainly used them to their advantage. Now that little Morgan was being humiliated, how could they just sit by and do nothing? How could they just let the matter go? It was indeed Li Yanmei's boyfriend, the young master of the DuPont family. Seeing that Morgan was beaten up, he walked out of the crowd with a few bodyguards around him. He walked forward aggressively, pointed at Jiang Tian's nose, and shouted angrily, "Jiang Tian! Bastard, do you know the consequences of doing this? The CIA and the FBI will detain you immediately. You will be charged with life imprisonment." He put one hand in his pocket, thinking that he was very handsome. His face was full of arrogance and loftiness, as if he was looking at ants. He scolded harshly. How dare a Wuxia person come to the United States and cause trouble? You must be tired of living. Kneel down and apologize to Morgan now. Chapter 806. At first, little DuPont looked on coldly from the sidelines, thinking that Jiang Tian wouldn't dare to challenge little Morgan at all, and would only make a fool of himself. But he didn't expect things to turn out like this. For a moment, he was sweating profusely, and wanted to come out and stop Jiang Tian. The bodyguards around him had already pulled out their pistols and pointed at Jiang Tian. Their eyes were as sharp as knives, and they looked like fiends. It seemed that if he dared to act rashly again, he would be shot dead on the spot. Get lost. A surge of vast power surged out from Jiang Tian's body. Little DuPont and the bodyguards were blown away more than 10 meters away like withered petals drifting in the wind. Little DuPont in particular bore the brunt of the impact and was the most miserable. Along the way, he knocked over many tables with champagne and cold food, and slid 20 meters away on the ground. His whole body was hit so hard that he couldn't move at all. No one knew whether he was dead or alive. The entire place was dead silent, not a single sound could be heard. Especially Song Beishan, Lu Jinghua, and the others. Their faces were even more shocked and their hearts were cold. No one had expected the result to be like this. Jiang Tian's attack was ruthless and unscrupulous. This was even more decisive and straightforward than when Jiang Tian dealt with the Lu and Song families in Yanjing. In Jiang Tian's eyes, the powerful American families that they regarded as their big backers were not even worth mentioning. Little did they know that when Jiang Tian was in Wuxia, it wasn't that he didn't dare to kill people. It was that he had deep feelings for Wuxia, and he also had to give face to the big chiefs of the sea and maintain the hard-won stability. If Jiang Tian didn't care about these things and showed the decisiveness of the cultivation world, Lu Jinghua, Song Beishan, and the others wouldn't have been alive. The noble son of the Rockefeller family was about to step forward and stop him. This person is the legendary martial arts expert of Wuxia, and he's so young. It can't be him, can it? Suddenly, he noticed that Jiang Tian didn't even come close to them before he sent them flying like scarecrows. His pupils couldn't help but constrict, but he stopped abruptly, and his heart became anxious and fearful. Kong Taichu, do you think you can run amok in the United States just because you defeated Zhang Qianlei? At that moment, seeing that her boyfriend, Little DuPont, was beaten to a pulp, Li Yanmei was flustered and exasperated. She danced and screamed hysterically. Kong Taichu, you've already forced the Song and Lu families to leave Wuxia and head overseas. Isn't that enough? She was filled with grief and indignation. After all, Little DuPont was someone she had just climbed up to. If he was beaten to death by Jiang Tian, then all her efforts would have been for naught. In a moment of desperation, she threw caution to the wind, and even called out Jiang Tian's name in the underworld. We respect you because you're Sidoni, the sect master of Tianqing School, a powerhouse on the power rankings, and the #1 person in the underworld. That's why we're being courteous to you. Do you think the United States is a pushover? At that moment, she had already obtained a green card from the United States and thought highly of herself. She thought that with the United States as her backing, she could deter Jiang Tian. What? Kong Taichu defeated Zhang Qianlei and forced the Song and Lu families to leave. Wang Jie, Fei Rong, Lu Yiting, Jin Gij Su Jin, and the others who had just squeezed over were all stunned when they heard that. Their hearts were filled with shock and confusion. They were either third-rate families or mildly wealthy families with assets of only a few hundred million. They were too far away from the real aristocrats, so they weren't well informed enough. Their understanding of Jiang Tian was still at the level of the Jinling King of Medicine, and the nephew of the Zhang family in Beijing. What they didn't know was that Jiang Tian had already defeated an Earth-level deity Sacred King, suppressed the Zhenyu Demon Lord, and suppressed the Covenant of Darkness. At this time, Han Qingli was holding Jiang Tian's arm and said proudly, "Brother Chen, I'm not going to let you down. Li Yanmei, the United States is nothing. Do you think that Master Kong won't dare to kill you just because you have a green card?" She said arrogantly. "Hurry up, kneel down and beg for mercy. Master Kong might let you go." At that moment, this love-struck girl was very close to Jiang Tian. She was so happy that she felt dizzy and felt the same feeling she had when she was at the Pine Wave Villa by the Kunming Lake. As long as she could hold on to Jiang Tian's arm, even if it was only for a minute, she would be so happy. Isn't this Han Qingli? She's one of the 4 great socialites of Yanjin. She knows Jiang Tian? Fei Rong looked at Jiang Tian and Han Qingli in disbelief. She was so shocked that she was stunned, as if she had seen a ghost. At that moment, after hearing Li Yanmei's accusation, Rockefeller finally confirmed Jiang Tian's identity. In an instant, he broke out in a cold sweat and his legs went weak. This was a peerless devil who had killed thousands of people in Europe, and even dared to destroy the British royal family. Who would dare to provoke him? However, this event was, after all, his family was responsible for the security and venue. If he didn't do anything, he would become a laughing stock. At that moment, he had no choice but to clench his fists and step forward. He said proudly, "Kong Taichu, don't think that you can run rampant and do whatever you want just because you're the leader of Sidoni Tianqing School and defeated the Covenant of Darkness. The strength and background of the United States are beyond your imagination. If you really push us too far, we will use nuclear weapons." What Tianqing School? Covenant of Darkness? Only by using nuclear weapons. Everyone only felt a buzzing sound in their heads, and a wave of dizziness overcame their understanding. Tianqing School. Covenant of Darkness. What is that? Fei Rong's pretty face was pale and trembling as she asked quietly. Tianqing School is the sect and dojo established by Master Kong in Sidoni. Han Qingli explained. Sidoni is the sixth most powerful country in the world. To put it bluntly, it's a country established by Master Kong. Mr. Jiang is the godfather and adoptive father of His Majesty King Arthur. He's the Supreme Emperor of Sidoni. What? He's so powerful. The Supreme Emperor of a country. Fei Rong couldn't believe it. She felt like she was listening to a book from heaven. This was too bizarre. What's the Covenant of Darkness? Was it destroyed by Jiang Tian again? At that moment, Lu Yiting, Wang Jia, and the others were all puzzled. Song Beishan and Lu Jinggua's older generation might be able to get a hold of such top-notch secrets, but they were too far away and had never heard of it. Not to mention them, even Xiaolin and Li Yanmei were far inferior. Their status was too low. The Covenant of Darkness is one of the most evil organizations in the world. In the Middle Ages, it once dominated Europe and controlled the royal families of several countries. It was even able to wrestle with the Holy See. But now it has been destroyed by my master, Kong Teichu. As the sonorous voice sounded, a tall and imposing figure suddenly appeared at the door. Under the escort of the Dragon Group's 4 spiritual generals and the Group of 8, an awe-inspiring old man walked in with large strides. Who is he? He looks extraordinary. I can't believe he's Jiang Tian's disciple. Fei Rong looked at Yi Zhantian and asked in confusion. Yi Zhantian, the leader of the Long Formation, the champion of martial arts in Wuxia. He used to be a lieutenant general, and is known as the god of war in the army. Everyone was puzzled. Only Chen Longxing had heard about it, and whispered with a pale face. What? Fei Rong was dumbfounded and felt dizzy. She didn't even have enough energy. The god of war in the army, Yi Zhantian, is Jiang Tian's disciple. This is unbelievable. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Yi Zhantian's master. What did this mean? It was unimaginable and terrifying. Yi Zhantian. Even Song Beishan and Lu Jinggua were pale and sweating when they saw Yi Zhantian. Just like Blue Storm and the Covenant of Darkness were strictly guarded by Wuxia. If they went to Wuxia, they would be suppressed. Yi Zhantian and the Long Formation would never dare to come to the United States. But at this moment he actually came with great fanfare. This meant that Yi Zhantian must have 100% confidence that he had an unimaginable trump card. Little Rockefeller's face changed drastically. Thinking of the massacre of thousands of people in dozens of European wealthy families, he felt a chill in his heart. But he couldn't show any weakness at this moment. He solemnly said, Mr. Lu, Mr. Song, I have just reported this to my father. He will help you contact the Pentagon and the CIA. General Keynes will be here soon, and will protect you. What? General Keynes is coming? As soon as this statement came out, the crowd was in an uproar. General Keynes. He was ranked 5th in the Pentagon and could speak directly to the president. He could mobilize a large number of American troops and had the power to topple the mountains and overturn the seas. That's good. Song Beishan and Lu Jinggua wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads and thanked him repeatedly. General Keynes is here. At this moment, there was an uproar at the door. Then the crowd parted like the tide. He saw a mighty old man in a military uniform, with a bright general star on his shoulder. He was escorted by several professional soldiers, and his footsteps were hurried toward him. The 5 middle-aged men behind him were men and women with different skin colors and ethnicities. But all of them had a powerful presence and sharp eyes. They exuded surging energy and were basically level X superpower users, comparable to immortal state overlords. Keynes was tall with a straight back. His hair was white and his face was as resolute as a knife. Step by step, even if he didn't say a word, he still attracted everyone's attention. Countless people looked at the hawkish veteran of the Pentagon with reverence and held their breath. Even the top nobles like DuPont, Morgan, and Rockefeller bowed slightly to Keynes to show their respect. Keynes had commanded many battles and gave people a sense of steadiness like a mountain. His presence was unbelievably powerful. Even Song Beishan and Lu Jinggua were far away from him. Kong Teichu, your death is here. Do you know the consequences of offending the United States? Seeing this, the muscles at the corner of Song Chaoyang's mouth twitched crazily. He laughed smugly and snorted. Ever since Jiang Tian appeared, he was suppressed until he could not raise his head. He knew the tragic ending of Song Poju and Song Shuangyan. One died on the spot without a complete body, and the other was expelled from Yanjin and joined Mount Shuamei to save her life. He had a deep fear of Jiang Tian. He was so scared that he almost peed in his pants. But now General Keynes was here. His confidence was instantly boosted. At this moment, he wanted to vent all the fear and panic that he had felt before. His eyes were gloomy and he sneered. Kong Teichu, you still want to capture us and settle the score with blood? What a shameless, arrogant, and ignorant person. But you don't know that we've already made friends with the United States. Chapter 807. How would he know that the current president of the United States, Bush, is supported by the Morgan, Rockefeller, DuPont and other families? Lu Qiji also regained her composure, gently swirling the red wine glass. Like a wise Mr. Zhuge, she said softly, but he doesn't know what's good for him. He beat up these young masters and even shouted to kill them, showing full hostility. Even if he has great ability, he will have to stay in the United States today. His eyes were filled with disdain, as if Jiang Tian was already a dead man. He grinned hideously and said, "You must know, Keynes is not an ordinary general, but a person who specializes in managing super strong people, just like Chao Shixiang and Wuxia. General Keynes, nice to meet you." At this time, Song Beishan and Lu Jingguo were already like loyal dogs meeting their master. Their faces were full of joy, and they enthusiastically greeted him. They were once meritorious officials in Wuxia. They were once extremely high officials, and had a respected status. But ever since they went against Jiang Tian, they lost their minds due to extreme hatred. They made one wrong move after another, and made one bad move after another. In the end, they were driven to desperation, and betrayed their motherland and people. They became the dogs of the foreigners and fell into eternal damnation. General Keynes, good evening. Xiaolin, Li Yanmei and the other younger generation all rushed to greet him, showing a decent and elegant smile. They bowed like real ladies, intending to leave a good impression on the great general who shook the Pentagon. Only Han Qingli's face changed slightly, then returned to normal. Full of disdain, she said, "Shameless people. You have the ability to bully your own people in Wuxia, but when you're abroad, you're like a stray dog. Shameless. Han Qingli, this is called a wise man submits to circumstances. After today, there will no longer be Master Kong in this world." Li Yanmei heard her ridicule, turned her head, and snorted disdainfully. "Han Qingli, you will regret today's choice. You don't know how deep the foundation of the United States is." At this moment, Xiaolin also chose to stand firmly on the side of the United States and the Song and Lu families. She gloated over Jiang Tian's misfortune. This is power. In front of the top American families like the DuPont, this Wuxia kid is too weak. Even if he is the ruler of a country, he can't resist. Many Americans shook their heads and sighed. Jiang Tian is in danger now. This is troublesome. At this time Wang Jie, Fei Rong, Lu Yiting, Jin Gij, and Su Jin's faces changed drastically, and their legs turned to jelly. This was a general of the Pentagon. How powerful and terrifying was that? He could mobilize the U.S. military. Wang Jie, look at what you've done. Why did you have to get involved with this Jiang guy? Fei Rong was so scared that she started crying. She waved her arms and legs and shouted hysterically, "Why didn't you stop him when he was hitting people? Are you blind or an idiot? Look, even the general of the Pentagon is here. Can he afford to offend him?" She wanted to cry but had no tears. She hated Jiang Tian to the bone, and was even more disappointed with Wang Jie. "Brainless, you two are too brainless. He's finished and so are you. We're all finished." Keynes was a powerful man who represented the U.S. military. Even if Jiang Tian was the ruler of Sidoni, so what? He could challenge the Pentagon and the United States of America, the most powerful country in the world? Didn't you see the tragic end of Iraq? The United States of America was invincible in this world. Wang Jie's face was pale, and he was speechless for a long time. In the end, he smiled bitterly and said, Sigh, for so many years I've always been a smooth talker. But I was also a humble young man back then. I don't want to bow down to the Americans. Even if I die here today, I think it's worth it to see Jiang Tian beat up these American tycoons. He seemed to be relieved, but who couldn't detect the bitterness and despair in his smile? Kong Tae-chu, if you apologize to me now, maybe you'll still have a chance to live. Morgan roared and looked at Jiang Tian with disdain, as if he was going to crush him. Smack. What he got in response was a crisp slap to the face. Jiang Tian slapped him to the ground, and blood spurted out from his face. Jiang Tian said lightly, "Kneel down." "Who said you could get up? I'll kill you if you talk any more nonsense." "Oh no. He's still beating people in front of canes." Fei Rong was so anxious that she almost fainted. "Good. Well done. Kong Tae-chu is always like this. How can he go far?" Lu Jinghua, Song Beishan and Han Fei gloated. If Jiang Tian did this, then there would be no room for negotiation. Canes would definitely fight him to the death. While the Song and Lu families were gloating and Lu Yiting, Jin Gij, and Fei Rong were panicking, then a shocking scene took place. Canes ignored Song Beishan, Lu Jinghua, and Morgan's complaints. He didn't stop and walked past them. It was as if they were just a bunch of air. Song Beishan and Lu Jinghua stopped in their tracks, and their smiles froze on their faces. They looked back in surprise. Then their eyes widened, as if they were going to pop out. Canes walked quickly to Jiang Tian, bowed deeply, and said in the most respectful tone he had ever used in his life. American Pentagon Navy Vice Admiral Canes greets Mr. Kong Tae-chu, the #1 on the power rankings, the head of Tianqing School, the Eastern Immortal. How is this possible? Seeing Canes being so respectful to Jiang Tian, everyone's expression changed drastically. They were dumbfounded, as if they had seen a ghost in broad daylight. For an important general like Canes, even when he met the leaders of other countries, he could speak with arrogance and not mince his words. Not to mention that Jiang Tian had come with a thunderous anger and attacked many powerful people. Canes should be furious, roaring like thunder, and announcing the arrest of Jiang Tian. How could this be? How could this be? This can't be. Jiang Tian can actually suppress such a big shot like Canes? Many people exclaimed. Could it be that Jiang Tian can still make a comeback? He's the general of the Pentagon. Li Yanmei, Xiaolin, Song Zhaoyang, Lu Qiji and the others turned pale and became anxious. It's just diplomatic etiquette. Peaceful means before resorting to force. It must be peaceful means before resorting to force. Song Beishan comforted himself. The power of the United States isn't something you can imagine. Canes won't let Jiang Tian go tonight. Lu Jinghua narrowed his eyes and said, only people at his level knew how domineering and powerful the United States was in the international community. They interfered in the internal affairs of other countries, started local wars, and carried out decapitation operations. The international police force wasn't just for show. Jiang Tian picked up the red wine and took a sip, as if he wanted to let his taste buds fully savor and appreciate the mellowness of the wine. The red wine lingered on the tip of his tongue for a long time before he swallowed it leisurely. He said, Canes, I know you. Get up. Master Kong knows my name. I'm terrified. Canes finally dared to stand up and said in a panic, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Jiang Tian glanced at the people around him coldly, and a hint of disdain appeared at the corner of his mouth. I'm going to punish these traitorous traitors. General Canes, you should be able to help. At this moment, Song Beishan, Lu Jinghua and the others were extremely nervous. They stopped breathing and looked at Canes pitifully. They knew that Canes wouldn't give Jiang Tian face. However, Jiang Tian's fierce reputation made them a bit unsure. Don't worry, Canes is about to show the sharp fangs of the Pentagon. Song Beishan forced a smile. Jiang Taichu, what right do you have to ask General Canes to make things easy for you? What right do you have? Lu Jinggua's face was full of sarcasm, and he was so angry that his body trembled. Mr. Kong Tae-chu, of course. Canes nodded and bowed to Jiang Tian, speaking humbly. But when he turned around, his face suddenly became as cold as ice. He glanced at Song Beishan and the others and said, These people support the gathering of darkness and affect the peace of the world. This is unforgivable. They'll listen to Mr. Zhang's decision. The Pentagon, the CIA, and the courts won't interfere. What? Once these words came out, Song Beishan, Lu Xingguo, and the others froze as if they had been struck by lightning. Their faces changed drastically, and they screamed like tomcats in a furnace. General Keynes, are you kidding? We came to surrender. We brought a lot of confidential information. Why didn't you kill Kong Taechu? How can you let him go? Don't raise a tiger and invite calamity. The smile on Song Beishan's face stiffened, and he could no longer smile. He was instantly shrouded in fear and panic. General Keynes, you said that you would provide us with political asylum. How can you go back on your words? Lu Xingguo's eyes were wide open, his hands trembling violently, and he was panting like an old cow. General Keynes, you must help us. We can give you money, political contributions. We support you to be the Minister of Defense. General Keynes, if you don't help, Kong Taechu will kill us. He's a villain. Lu Xingguo and Song Beishan were old and experienced. Although their hearts were in chaos, they could at least maintain their composure. But the attitude of Song Yang, Lu Qiji, and the others of the younger generation was far too different. They knelt on the ground, tears and mucus flowing, kowtowing like they were pounding garlic, wagging their tails and begging Keynes. Yes, Kong Taechu has slaughtered the world. Even the European Union could not suppress him. His next step is to challenge the authority of the United States? You should have made the first move. Yes, he even dares to provoke the DuPont and Rockefeller families. As a senior official of the Pentagon, how can you sit back and do nothing? Keynes, we have American citizenship, we have a green card, we are Americans, we actively pay taxes, you must protect our safety. They even hugged Keynes' legs and cried loudly, snot bubbles coming out of their noses. For a moment, they were like stray dogs, wagging their tails and begging for mercy. Chapter 808. Get out of my way. Keynes kicked Li Yanmei, who was hugging his trousers, away and shouted angrily, your immigration application was seriously falsified. Fortunately, our country's immigration review agency discovered it in time and deprived you of your citizenship. You are now equal to illegal immigrants. The United States only protects its citizens. Why should it protect you? Clatter. A public official under Keynes threw out a stack of documents. It was the rejection document from the Immigration Review Agency. When everyone saw this, their bodies trembled as if they had been struck by lightning. They froze on the spot, and their faces were filled with despair and fear. Song Beishan stood there for a long time with a pale face. Suddenly he reacted and knelt in front of Jiang Tian. He smiled flatteringly. Master Kong, this old man knows his mistake. Please be magnanimous and spare the Song family. His body was trembling, and so was his white hair. He wagged his tail like an old dog and begged in a low voice, Master Kong, you also know that Song Shuangyan has joined the Amei sword sect of Mount Shu. Wouldn't it be great if she could be your servant when she comes back? Her beauty and her cultivation. Beishan, do you think this is useful? Don't you feel ashamed? Lu Xingguo was stunned when he saw this. Then he looked up at the sky and shook his head. Jiang Taichu is a ferocious man. He kills people and destroys families at the slightest provocation, destroying cities and destroying countries. He killed so many people in Europe that blood flowed like a river. He wants to establish his unparalleled power. Do you think he will let us go if you beg for mercy? Since the day we helped the gathering of darkness, we have never looked back. He knew that he had no chance to live today. He sighed sadly, as if he had aged 10 years in an instant. The Amei sword sect of Mount Shu is a real sword immortal. They are otherworldly and unpredictable. Song Beishan ignored Lu Xingguo and kept kowtowing to Jiang Tian. Every time he kowtowed, it was genuine and honest. It made a loud bang. In a moment, his skin was torn and his forehead was stained with blood. He smiled obsequiously, half pleading, half threatening, and said, Don't worry. Master Kong, no Lord Jiang, as the saying goes, it's better to squash enmity than keep it alive. Harmony is the most important thing. I'm sure that, with Master Zhang's wisdom, you will make a rational decision when faced with the choice of having one more major enemy, or one more capable helper, right? At this time, he seemed to be a little delirious as he laughed maniacally. As long as you let me go, you will be my grandfather. Lu Yiting, Fei Rong, and the others were dumbfounded. Their eyes almost popped out of their sockets. This was Song Beishan. This was a person who often appeared in the first 5 minutes of the news broadcast. He was an extremely powerful official with monstrous authority. But at this moment he was forced to kneel and kowtow to Jiang Tian, calling him master and ancestor. He even called out such an unbearable title like biological grandfather. From this, one could see just how terrified he was right now. From this, one could see just how powerful Jiang Tian's heavenly god power was. Old man, you're implying something. Jiang Tian laughed out loud and said, don't you know that Song Shuangyan and Hao Taichong have already died at my hands outside the sword catacomb? The entire place was dead silent. Everyone was dumbfounded. Jiang Tian had already killed the only hope of the Song family to rise again? What? How is this possible? Song Beishan's face suddenly turned paler than a corpse that had been dead for 3 days. His body swayed, and he almost fainted. I received a tip-off. It's true. I didn't tell you before because I didn't want you to be too sad. Lu Xingguo smiled bitterly and shook his head. Shuangyan is no longer here. Otherwise, why would I give the Amei sword sex address to the Covenant of Darkness? Dead? She's dead. Song Beishan's heart was cold and filled with despair. His eyes were empty and lifeless, as if his spirit had been stripped away. He collapsed to the ground. Zhantian. Jiang Tian said calmly. Yes, master. Yi Zhantian stepped forward. Those who offend my Tianqing school, what should we do? Jiang Tian said with a lazy smile. Must be killed. Yi Zhantian shouted coldly. Those who betray my Wuxia, what should we do? Jiang Tian asked again. Must be killed. Yi Zhantian's body was as straight as a javelin, murderous intent soaring, his eyes as sharp as a knife, and his tone was sonorous and powerful. Kill. Jiang Tian lazily leaned back on the luxurious chair, casually waving his hand. Yes. Yi Zhantian drew a long sword, approaching the crowd. Master Kong, I've been overseas, I've never offended you, please spare my life. Lu Qiji's legs were trembling, her teeth were chattering, and she uncontrollably knelt down. Get up. Useless thing. Even if you want to die, you should die with dignity. What's the use of kneeling and begging for mercy? Lu Xingguo roared. Ancestor Xian, I don't want to die. Lu Qiji's screams came to an abrupt end. A cold light flashed across. Yi Zhantian had already swung his sword. Lu Qiji's head flew a few meters away and rolled to the ground, blood spurting out of her body. Hiss. There was a dead silence. No one thought it would end like this. Jiang Tian was able to suppress the Pentagon and make them obediently hand over the traitor. They also did not think that Jiang Tian would be so domineering and ruthless, killing on the spot without saying a word. Many women screamed in fright, but their screams came to an abrupt end. They trembled, covering their mouths, but did not dare to make a sound, for fear of attracting Jiang Tian's attention. Only the long formation generals were looking at Jiang Tian with a look of worship, their eyes bursting with a blazing light. Grandmaster Jiang was killing for the sake of those traitorous, pro-American guides. He was also killing for the sake of America, and even more so for the world to see. What does it mean that those who offend my strong people will be killed? This is what it means. Even if you escape to the United States, get a green card, even if you collude with the Pentagon, you will not escape death. Show off my country's prestige. Dear, please help me. I can't die. Li Yanmei's legs turned to jelly. She urinated on the spot and begged little DuPont. General Keynes, why is this happening? When has the United States ever bowed our head? Seeing this, little DuPont almost jumped up in anger, glaring furiously at General Keynes. We still have nuclear weapons, the Atlantic Fleet, countless sophisticated weapons, and millions of soldiers. You can't even protect the most basic safety of taxpayers. You have seriously failed in your duty. This is an order from the White House. General Keynes' face was as still as water, unmoved. What? An order from the White House? Little Dupont's face suddenly turned pale and dim, his eyes filled with incomparable sadness and disappointment, as if his spirit had been sucked out in an instant. In the end, he shook his head and sighed, saying with difficulty, "Fine, fine, since it's an order from the White House, I won't interfere in this matter." "What, you don't care about me anymore?" Li Yanmei's body trembled as if she had lost her parents. "This woman's skills in bed are not bad, but that's all." Little Dupont was a little reluctant, but in the end, his face hardened and he threw a cold look over. "Get out." A few white bodyguards immediately understood, lifting Li Yanmei up and violently pushing her out. "Master Kong, spare my life, I know I was wrong." Li Yanmei trembled as she crawled toward Jiang Tian. She was filled with regret, her beautiful eyes filled with tears, and her face was filled with despair as she begged for mercy. "Kill." Jiang Tian's eyes were filled with disgust as he urged. "Zhantian, hurry up, don't let her snot get on me." Poof. Li Yanmei only felt cold and hot at the same time. Looking down, she was shocked to see a long sword sticking out of her full chest. Then her vision turned black, and she fell into eternal darkness, dying an unnatural death. "Grandpa, save me." Song Chaoyang howled miserably in despair. He actually took large strides and quickly ran out of the door. "Don't you dare run, you traitor. You should have thought of this when you betrayed your country." Black Tortoise took a step and crossed a distance of more than 10 meters. Kaboom! He punched out and directly pierced Song Chaoyang's chest, pulling out his beating heart, throwing it on the ground and crushing it with his foot. Then, many of the long formation warriors moved, swinging their long swords and slashing down mercilessly. The descendants of the Song and Lu families fell in a pool of blood one by one, dying in a foreign land. "Kill Song Beishan and Lu Jingguo first. Take your time to kill the rest. I'm going out to eat supper." After they killed a few more people, Jiang Tian suddenly raised his hand and pointed at the two old men, sneering. Song Beishan sat on the ground, his eyes glazed over, and feces and urine flowed out from between his legs. Hearing this, he woke up from his dream and begged, "Master Kong, spare me this time." "Old bastard, you should have died long ago." Yi Zhantian hated him to the core, so there was no mercy. He swung his sword. Puff! Blood spurted out. Song Beishan's head rolled on the ground, and the stench of blood flowed everywhere. His eyes were still open, but they had dimmed, filled with unwillingness and fear. It was as if he could not believe that he would end up in such a miserable state until the moment of his death. When he reached Lu Jingguo, "Zhantian, in a few months, your father Yi Tianren and Jiang Tian's 3-year agreement will be up." Lu Jingguo, on the other hand, appeared very calm. He said calmly, "Yi Tianren should also come out of retirement. As the saying goes, when two tigers fight, one is bound to be injured. Too bad I won't be able to see it." He sneered. "When the time comes, no matter who dies, you have to let me know. If I know in the underworld, I will smile too." A shadow flashed across Yi Zhantian's heart. His body froze and his face changed. The next moment he sneered and said, "Old brat, no one will die. Only you will definitely die." Swoosh! Lu Jingguo's head flew up and fell to the ground. His eyes were still wide open, as if they were filled with unwillingness and despair. Dozens of corpses lay on top of each other. The luxurious solid wood floor was covered with large patches of sticky blood. The thick smell of blood was so pungent that it was difficult to breathe. At this point, the Song and Lu families, who had dominated Wuxia for decades, were completely wiped off the face of the earth. None of their core members were spared. All of them died an unnatural death. The originally grand banquet had turned into a scene of carnage. It was like hell on earth. The whole place was dead silent. Everyone cowered like quails, their scalps tingling. No one dared to make a sound. Chapter 809. At this moment, Jiang Tian stepped on the pool of blood and slowly stood up. He raised his wine cup and smiled gently. "Everyone, the Song and Lu families have offended me several times. Today I'm going to kill them all. I'm sorry for scaring you all." His face was beaming with happiness, revealing his neat, white teeth. He said amiably, "I Kong Teichu have always been vengeful. But I'll never kill the innocent. Actually, I've always been a kind person." I'm looking forward to peace. I welcome you to continue investing in Sidoni. Everyone was silent. No one dared to say a word. Everyone was scared out of their wits. Many of the female guests even started to sob softly. After all, they were all legal businessmen and wealthy people. They had never seen such a tragic scene of dozens of people being beheaded in seconds. In fact, many people were cursing in their hearts. You're a kind person. You're looking forward to peace. You're a devil. Grandmaster Zhang's words are true. Keynes broke the awkward silence with a smile and flattered, "You're right. Master Kong, you killed the Covenant of Darkness and its henchmen for world peace. The Pentagon is very impressed." Yes, the Morgan family is also very impressed. Morgan's legs trembled as he smiled and tried to curry favor. DuPont, Morgan, Rockefeller, you've all secretly supported the Covenant of Darkness. You all owe me your lives. And the lives of your entire family. Jiang Tian glanced at him and said calmly, "I'll come anytime soon. I will come and get it at any time. As for when I will come and get it, that will depend on your performance." The faces of the rich Americans changed, and then they started to tremble as if they were grieving for their parents. Morgan smiled and said, "Master Kong, we were wrong." Even if he was unwilling, he had to lower his head at this moment. Jiang Tian really dared to kill him. There must be some misunderstanding. The DuPont family's son also turned pale. It might be an order from a branch family. I'll get to the bottom of it and give Mr. Jiang an explanation. Ha! Jiang Tian's eyes were full of contempt. He was too lazy to pay attention to their explanations. He drank the wine in his cup and turned to walk out of the door. The investment conference that the Celestial God Corporation had carefully planned was already in chaos. How could it continue? General Keynes, thank you for your cooperation. In the future, if you need my cooperation, Wuxia, we will do our best. After Yi Zhantian and Keynes exchanged a few words, they led the long formation warriors and left with Jiang Tian. Lu Yiting, Jin Gij, Fei Rong, Wang Jie, and the others hurriedly followed Jiang Tian. Many Wuxia businessmen left the Rockefeller building with shock and many mysteries. In the end, many celebrities and tycoons in the United States scrambled to leave as if they were avoiding the plague. Only corpses were left in the huge hall. There were also little DuPont, little Rockefeller, little Morgan, little Charlene, and several other young talents. General Keynes, is it true that Kong Taechu cannot be provoked? He's threatening the three families. Didn't you hear him? Little Morgan was also afraid of Jiang Tian's threat, but thinking about his disdainful look, he was enraged and gritted his teeth. Today is a great humiliation for us. We want to see the president and ask him to use nuclear weapons to kill this man. Little Rockefeller's face was also ashen. His murderous aura surged, and his eyes shot out flames of anger. Kong Taechu is indeed powerful, but it's obvious that the dominators of the world are not him or Sidoni. Keynes straightened his body, and his eyes suddenly became sharp. At this time, he finally showed the viciousness of a lieutenant general in the Pentagon. He said coldly, "But you have to understand that this is New York, the largest city in the United States with 10 million citizens. How can we use nuclear weapons?" The three of them froze. Little Rockefeller hesitated. Is only nuclear weapons in this world able to kill him? Laser weapons and electromagnetic weapons can't do it? If you don't take action, we will stop political donations and even impeach the president. Little Morgan was very domineering at this time. He swung his sleeves angrily. He was almost killed by Jiang Tian just now. The more he thought about it, the more he felt that this person must be eliminated. The three of you, the president and the Pentagon, agree that Kong Taechu must be killed. Keynes was not in a hurry. He smiled eerily. It's just that weapons of mass destruction are not allowed to be used in the United States. We can only carry out a precise operation to kill the leader. Today, I cooperated with him to kill the Song and Lu families to show our goodwill, and make him unguarded so that we can kill him. I see. Great. General Keynes, I knew that you must have a backup plan. This time, we've caught him off guard. Kong Taechu must die. The three of them were overjoyed. However, the operation still needs the three of you to cooperate closely. Otherwise, the chances of success are slim. Kane said slowly with a cold look in his eyes. New York was a metropolis. It was very prosperous. Han Qingli knew the way. Soon, she led Jiang Tian and the rest to a Chinese bar. They sat down again and had some supper. However, no one spoke for a while. The atmosphere in the booth was a little cold. At this time, everyone was shocked. They looked at Jiang Tian as if they were looking at a monster. Jiang Tian, no brother Tian, you're too awesome. Jean Gage was very excited. She gave him a thumbs up and praised. You can even suppress Canes? Kill in front of so many rich people in America? Kill the whole family, and the Song and Lu families. She was originally a tough woman, a pure man. She walked the path of Brother Chun, and was very fierce. It's really killing a person every 10 steps, leaving no trace for 1,000 miles. Once the matter is done, you leave with a flick of your sleeves, hiding your achievements and fame. Hero. Peerless hero. Everyone was panicking, but she was the first to calm down. She gave Chun Fan a thumbs up excitedly, and her eyes were twinkling. I finally understand why you were so domineering when Lu Liwei went to Beautiful Sky. You even mobilized the Red Wall internal guards. At this moment, Wang Jie admired Jiang Tian to the point of prostrating himself before him. They were no longer from the same world. He could only look up to them. Jiang Tian, let me give you a toast. I'm sorry for offending you just now. I'm so sorry. Fei Rong was so scared that she almost cried. She held the glass with both hands and proposed a toast to Jiang Tian. Her hands trembled so much that she spilled a lot of wine. She was born in a family in Yanjin and knew the status of the Song and Lu families. They were unparalleled in the world. However, Jiang Tian had trampled on such families time and time again. It was not enough to chase them out of the country. He even chased them all the way to America. Not even the Morgan family dared to stop him. How terrifying was Jiang Tian's power. Now that even the Pentagon had to bow down to him, how many people in the world could suppress him? Who had the right to be presumptuous in front of him? Don't tremble. Those people that I killed deserve to be killed. You're Wang Jie's fiancé. How can I kill you? Jiang Tian sighed helplessly and took a sip of wine. He kept a distance from his classmates because of this. Once his identity was exposed, the equal and natural classmate relationship would be gone. Master Kong is not a bad person. He doesn't kill people for no reason. Seeing that Jiang Tian and the other old classmates were so scared that their faces turned pale, Han Qingli could only roll her eyes and explain. Everyone secretly clicked their tongues when they heard this, feeling deep respect for Jiang Tian. Demons, vampires. These were all things that only existed in legends. They usually only appeared in movies and novels. If they had not seen with their own eyes that Jiang Tian was able to suppress Canes and the other rich young masters, they would have thought that this was nonsense. I was forced to do something. I wanted to do something in Sidoni. These demons and monsters are messing around. His classmates wanted to ask more, but Jiang Tian did not want to say any more. He did not want his classmates to be involved in his world. However, this time, he had no choice but to take action when he encountered the Lu and Song families. Let's not talk about these scary things. We just need to remember that no matter what, we are still good classmates. Wang Jie was a clear-minded person. He immediately stood up and shouted to liven up the atmosphere. Everyone could only suppress the many questions in their hearts and drink again. This time, Fei Rong's attitude was much better. Before this, she did not drink with Jiang Tian and the others. However, this time, she repeatedly toasted Jiang Tian and tried to please him. As a result, she looked at Wang Jie, Chen Longsheng, Lu Yiting, and the others with a smile. She said on the spot that she would go back and register her marriage with Wang Jie. She could not wait any longer. Her parents were very anxious. Seeing this, even Wang Jie was a little confused. Ever since he met Fei Rong, he had never received such good treatment. Only Han Qingli looked on coldly. She knew very well. Master Kong dominated the world and controlled a country and a religion. Even if he did not do it personally, his many disciples would be enough to make Fei Rong's stomach round. This small gathering between the classmates ended happily with Fei Rong's flattery. Except for Han Qingli, the others got up and left. They immediately bought tickets to return to Wuxia according to Jiang Tian's request. At the airport, everyone was still immersed in shock. They gathered together and whispered, recalling the shocking scene that night. Sigh, this Jiang Tian is simply too heaven-defying. No wonder he dared to trample on Luliwei. Now he has destroyed the Lu and Song families. Wang Jie was shocked and sighed. He killed people in front of a high-ranking Pentagon official. I heard that Keynes is a general, but he acted as if he didn't see it. This is unimaginable. The more they thought about it, the more shocked they became. The United States was undoubtedly the most powerful country in the world. It had millions of soldiers and countless nuclear weapons. It had the most terrifying military power, and was the most unyielding in the international community. It was known as the International Police. However, it seemed that the United States did not dare to provoke Jiang Tian. How is this possible? How is this possible? If I didn't see it with my own eyes, I would have thought that this was a dream. Fei Rong still could not believe it. Why didn't those Americans stop it? Those American dignitaries were beaten up, but they didn't dare to fight back. Why did Jiang Tian do that? Chapter 8:10. Why? Chen Longsheng was, after all, more well-informed. Because he is the most powerful man in the dark world. He hunted down Jiang Ligua, the sixth most powerful man in the world. He is the master of Sidoni. Hunted down a powerful man? How? Lu Yiting asked curiously. How did he become the master of Sidoni? The Grand Emperor? Is that a feudal society? Fei Rong was shocked. There are some things that I don't know. I am only in charge of the secular business in the Chen family, Chen Longsheng explained. But I vaguely heard Chen Zifen and the others say that Jiang Tian once defeated the French army, and then defeated the Dark Parliament with a history of 1,000 years. He killed thousands of people in Europe, including the members of the royal family, and forced the European Union President Jung to kneel and beg for mercy. The entire Sidoni was saved and built by him. Even the Rockefeller family's assets are nothing compared to his. As he spoke, Chen Longsheng told him some of the secret information he had heard. Although he didn't know much about it, it was still a piece of cake. To the others, it sounded like a fantasy story. They couldn't believe it. He defeated the 28th Japanese Mixed Brigade, hundreds of thousands of French Navy, Air Force, and the American Superforce? Wang Jie and Fei Rong felt that it was a myth. How is that possible? Planes, cannons, and missiles. How can ordinary people withstand them? Even Lu Yiting shook her head. Even the superheroes in Marvel comics and movies aren't that powerful. She was the closest to Jiang Tian. She remembered that when they were in college, Jiang Tian failed sports every day. How did he become Superman? If not, why didn't Keynes stop Jiang Tian when Lu Jinghua and the others were defeated? Chen Longsheng chuckled and said, Yi Zhantian used to be the god of war in the army. After he retired, he took charge of the Dragon Group in Wuxia. The members of the Dragon Group were all people who could break mountains with their fists and fly into the sky. However, he became Jiang Tian's disciple. The people around him suddenly became silent. Their hearts churned as they wanted to defend themselves. However, just as Chen Longsheng said, if Jiang Tian wasn't Superman, everything that happened tonight couldn't be explained. Everyone, Jiang Tian is no ordinary person. Chen Longsheng smiled. Many people say that he is the reincarnation of a god. The luckiest thing in our lives is to have such an old classmate. So what if we lose the representative of the Celestial Gods Corporation? As long as Jiang Tian gives us a chance, we can easily earn hundreds of millions or even billions. Fei Rong immediately became excited. She elbowed Wang Jie and said, Wang Jie, you must catch Jiang Tian. Let's go to Sidoni and find some projects to do. Only Lu Yiting's eyes were filled with resentment. She sighed softly. The distance between her and Jiang Tian was getting further and further. Perhaps, he should have given up long ago and cut off that thought. Just as their minds were in turmoil, Jiang Tian and Han Qingli had already walked out of the bar. Yi Zhantian immediately appeared like a ghost and said, Master Kong, their relationship with you has been exposed. Will the United States of America do anything to them? You can see it too? Jiang Tian said with a smile. There must be something fishy going on. Yi Zhantian's eyes flashed. Keynes is a true hawk. He believes that the dignity of the United States of America is inviolable and views the martial arts community of Wuxia as his mortal enemy. Today we killed and captured people right under his nose. Even if he didn't dare to do anything, he should have threatened to protest. However, he cooperated with us and was respectful. This is very unusual. That's right. Jiang Tian nodded and said, Zhantian, your judgment is getting more and more accurate. He said slowly, Keynes definitely wants to kill us, but he knows our cultivation level. Nuclear weapons and other weapons of mass destruction are completely useless against us. Therefore, he might have used a precise strategy to kill us. He cooperated with us to kill the Song family and the Lu family. He just wanted to make me lower my guard. Then let's get out of here. Yi Zhantian's eyes flashed and he said, We are at a disadvantage if we stay in their territory. Also, if they kidnapped your friends and classmates, you would have to hold back. I have asked them to come back to their country as soon as possible. You should go back as soon as possible. Jiang Tian said lightly. What about you? Come back with us. Yi Zhantian said nervously. Of course, Jiang Tian's cultivation was very strong, but the technology of the United States was also advancing rapidly. There were many high-tech laboratories. Who knew what kind of strange weapons they had developed? In the 50s and 60s of the last century, the United States of America had never killed an immortal state overlord. However, after half a century of development, it was hard to say for sure. Don't worry. As long as I am here, they won't dare to do anything to you. You can come back to your country safely. Jiang Tian said lightly. You don't have to worry about me in the United States of America. I have my ways to stop them. Master, you don't have to take the risk. Yi Zhantian was touched and anxious. He wanted to say something but stopped on second thought. However, Jiang Tian was unmoved. In the end, Yi Zhantian heaved a sigh and left with the 4 elemental generals. That night, Jiang Tian stayed at Han Qingli's apartment. The next day, Jiang Tian received a reply. The 4 elemental generals and 8 divine generals had brought the bodies of Song Beishan and Lu Jinghua back to their country. However, Cairns, Morgan, and the others did not come. Instead, Charlene came first. Jiang Tian, why are you still here? Charlene was wearing a pair of large sunglasses and a baseball cap. She was also dressed in casual male attire. When the girl saw Jiang Tian, she urged nervously, Are you waiting for them to kill you? Who wants to kill me? Who has the ability to kill me? Jiang Tian smiled faintly and said disdainfully. Charlene said anxiously, I know you are very powerful and the most powerful person in the dark world. But you don't know what kind of trump cards Keynes and Morgan have. What kind of trump cards? Jiang Tian smiled and said, You work for the Heavenly Gods Corporation. What do you know? Anyway, they are not people you can mess with. Charlene's expression changed slightly. She wanted to say something but stopped. There is no one in this world that I don't dare to mess with. Jiang Tian was unmoved as he smiled faintly. Jiang Tian, how can you be so arrogant and stubborn? The more Charlene thought about it, the angrier she became. You have never seen a higher level of life. You don't know how powerful the United States of America is. I'm here to remind you on account of the fact that we met once in Yenjing. Didn't you see that I changed my appearance? I took a great risk, but you didn't recognize my kindness. A higher level of life. Jiang Tian smiled faintly in disdain. Haha, so what if you are from a divine level civilization? If you mess with me, you will definitely die. Not to mention that he was already at Foundation Establishment Level 1. There were not many people on Earth who had such cultivation. Even when he was at Qi Refinement, he had been able to simulate many divine powers without fear. He glanced at Charlene and said slowly, I have to advise you. Stay away from the Heavenly Gods Corporation. Otherwise, I'm afraid you will not have a good ending. Although this woman was very ignorant of his own strength, her advice was indeed out of good intentions. Charlene was so angry that her face turned pale. This Jiang Tian was too arrogant. Good words could not persuade a person who deserved to die. If you want to die, then die. That's all I have to say. There's nothing I can do if you don't listen. She couldn't be bothered to persuade him anymore, and left with a cold smile. Jiang Tian only smiled, and continued to refine the flying swords and pills. He was not in a hurry. Jiang Tian stayed in New York for a few more days. He was not in a hurry, meditating and refining the 9 flying swords. Sure enough, on this morning, Morgan came to visit. Master Kong, I'm here to apologize for my offensive behavior a few days ago. The bruises on Morgan's face had yet to fade, but he bowed politely, showing the demeanor of a first-tier American scion. Just a verbal apology? Jiang Tian smiled sinisterly. I'll kill your entire family and then apologize to you. Is that okay? Of course not. Little Morgan was so frightened that his entire body trembled. He smiled humbly and said, Indeed, we didn't know Master Kang's strength and went astray by supporting the Dark Parliament, but we have already realized our mistake. At noon, my father and I would like to invite Master Kong and Miss Han Qingli to the Morgan Manor to discuss compensation. Okay. Jiang Tian nodded slightly and agreed. Master Kong, I'm afraid it's just as Charlene said. They came prepared and want to kill you. After Morgan left, Han Qingli reminded him. Are you going to the banquet or not? Don't go if you're scared, Jiang Tian said with a smile. Of course I'm going. Han Qingli waved her small fists, her beautiful eyes twinkling as she said excitedly, watching Master Kong kill people is so satisfying. It's like drinking ergotu. Jiang Tian was speechless. This girl had delicate features, but he didn't expect that she had such a terrifying violent gene hidden in her heart. 10 o'clock in the morning. Jiang Tian got into Han Qingli's silver Mercedes-Benz and drove leisurely to the Morgan Manor. The Morgan Manor, on Gavanis Island in New York Bay, occupied a large area of more than 300 acres. This manor and Liberty Island, where the Statue of Liberty was located, could be seen from afar. Jiang Tian lived in Han Qingli's apartment in Manhattan. He had to cross half of New York City and take a ferry to get to the island. They arrived at the Morgan Manor. Morgan was already waiting at the door with a joyful face. He asked Jiang Tian and Han Qingli to get out of the car and walk inside together. This manor was quite old. It was built in a classic European style. The large round villa with milky white marble had gone through the vicissitudes of life. There were Roman columns, statues and fountains. The environment was pleasant. The green grass was like a cushion and the pine and cypress trees stood along the path, blocking the sky and the sun. It gave people a very quiet feeling. Jiang Tian scanned the manor with his divine sense as he walked, and a playful smile appeared on his face. Chapter 8:11. Under the guidance of a few bodyguards, the group entered a large hall. He saw an old man with white hair on his temples, but his back was ramrod straight, and he had an imposing appearance. The old man was wearing a black tuxedo and holding a black cane. He had half a lens on his aquiline nose, and an antique pocket watch hanging in front of his chest. He looked like an old British gentleman. Master Kong, Ms. Han, I'm the chairman of the Morgan Financial Group, the head of the Morgan family, Jeep Morgan. Nice to meet you. As soon as he saw Jiang Tian, his face was full of joy. He took the initiative to extend his hand and greeted him. I've heard of you, the richest and most powerful man in America. I heard that even the Federal Reserve has to give you face. Jiang Tian smiled and shook hands with him. Compared to Master Kong, I'm just a rich man. I don't deserve it. Morgan, the Jeep, had a humble smile on his face as he bowed deeply. He even spoke fluent Chinese. Master Kong, Ms. Han, please have a seat. Old Morgan was polite and at ease. He led Jiang Tian and Han Qingli to the luxurious round chairs inlaid with pearls and sat down. Then he waved his hand to dismiss little Morgan. Jiang Tian sipped his fragrant tea and went straight to the point with a smile. You support the gathering of darkness. How do you plan to compensate me? You know what happened to those rich families in the European Union? Master Kong, I've been terrified and guilty about this matter. Jeep Morgan asked pitifully. Of course I'll compensate you. Master Kong, what do you think about my family compensating you with $50 billion? Han Qingli was so excited that she felt dizzy. She quickly gave Jiang Tian a look. That meant that it was enough, and it wasn't little at all. 50 billion US dollars. This amount of compensation was enough to make those rich Wuxia tycoons who had a few $100 million USD feel proud of themselves. Your family is said to control trillions of USD. Aren't you a little too stingy? Jiang Tian ignored Han Qingli's look and continued to demand an exorbitant price. I'm willing to admit defeat, but 50 billion US dollars is our limit. Jeep Morgan sighed and smiled bitterly. Do you know that I don't even give those European financial groups and families a chance to buy their lives? Jiang Tian sneered, his eyes cold. Master Kong may not know this, but although we control trillions of dollars in assets, our own assets are only $200 billion. The rest is leverage, debt, and financial management. Jeep Morgan shook his head with a panicked expression. The bitterness at the corner of his mouth became even stronger, and the wrinkles at the corner of his mouth became even deeper, as if they were carved by a knife. He seemed to have aged 10 years in an instant as he sighed helplessly. Also, during the two exchange rate wars in the EU, we were Chen Jinming and the California Financial Group's opponents. We suffered heavy losses. Right now, I only have 120 billion US dollars. Master Kong should at least leave me some money to support my family. He subconsciously turned the large ruby ring on his right middle finger and laughed self-deprecatingly. I finally understand now. Never be Master Kang's opponent. You'll lose everything. You'll lose everything. Very well, if that's the case, then 80 billion USD it is. Follow Jiang Tian closely from now on, and you'll be able to make a comeback. Jiang Tian said with a smile. Jeep Morgan was overjoyed when he heard this. He stood up and bowed deeply to Jiang Tian. Master Kong, there's an old saying in Wuxia, no discord, no concord. As long as Master Kong gives me some information, the Morgan family will follow Master Kang's footsteps and make a comeback. Jiang Tian laughed. Jeep Morgan didn't waste any time. He immediately asked the old servant to bring him a checkbook. Swish. Old Morgan signed his name and walked toward Jiang Tian with the check in both hands. He nodded and smiled. Check from a Swiss bank. You can withdraw at any time. Master Kong, please accept it. Master Kong, it's too easy for you to make money. 50 billion USD. Han Qingli exclaimed. But at this moment, a sudden change occurred. Jeep Morgan's eyes flashed with a hint of viciousness as he lifted his right hand. The ruby ring on his middle finger suddenly shot out a beam of white light toward Jiang Tian's forehead. In a split second, Jiang Tian tilted his head. The beam of white light penetrated the 60-centimeter thick marble wall in a blink. The white light was so hot that it created a hole the size of a bowl. There were burn marks on the edge of the hole like lava. Jeep Morgan's face paled. It was a miniature version of the extreme energy laser launcher, the ultimate weapon of the universe shield. It was small but powerful. It could penetrate dozens of centimeter-thick steel plates. It was an attack at the speed of light, and yet Jiang Tian was able to dodge it. And when did he do it? How did he get his hands on my extreme energy laser ring? Blue Witch, one of the 4 giants of the universe shield. Your ruby is quite big and shiny. It almost blinded my eyes. Jiang Tian smiled and crushed the ruby in his hand. It was obvious that there was an extremely compact structure in it. It was at the nano level, as if it didn't belong to the civilization of this world. Kong Teichu, go to hell. Seeing that she had been exposed, Jeep Morgan, who was in the form of Blue Witch, jumped up vigorously. She flipped her wrist and 2 daggers appeared in her hands. She waved them toward Jiang Tian. At the same time, the 5 burly men behind Han Qingli also reached out and grabbed Han Qingli. Jiang Tian, save me. I'm going to die. Han Qingli was so scared that her face turned pale, and she screamed. You want to kill me with just the likes of you? Jiang Tian didn't panic at all, and slowly raised his hand. A formless restrictive force immediately shrouded the space. The 5 burly men were all frozen in place. They were dumbfounded and couldn't move at all. Blue Witch was also frozen in the air. She was still in a falling posture, but she was still suspended in the air, motionless. Break! She tried her best to activate her arcana, and there was finally a change. The skin all over his body rolled up like fine blue scales, making rustling sounds. Those scales were like sapphires, crystal clear, and covered her entire body, including her limbs and face. However, she still couldn't break free from the seal. She was panicking, and her eyes were filled with fear. She didn't expect that she couldn't use her arcana at all. It was as if she was wearing invisible shackles. She was a Super X Arcanist, a powerful existence beyond the immortal state. She was one of the giants of the universe shield. Hehe, as expected of the Heavenly God Corporation. You are indeed a race from outer space. But you are so ugly. Jiang Tian stood up and approached the Blue Witch. His face was full of disdain. Blue Witch was a very small race in outer space called the Thousand Change Demon race. They could naturally transform into any shape, and even their voices and fingerprints were exactly the same. However, their combat power was very average. Their strength and speed were only equivalent to a Super X Arcanist, which was around the immortal state. Moreover, this Blue Witch's bloodline wasn't pure. She should only have a quarter of the Thousand Change Demon bloodline. How could she escape from Jiang Tian's divine sense? How could she be a match for Jiang Tian? When Jiang Tian entered the Morgan Manor, his divine sense had found out that she was the one who had transformed. If you dare to kill me, the real Superbrains will definitely avenge me. Under the despairing gaze of the blue sorceress, Jiang Tian slowly grabbed her neck and twisted it lightly. Crack! The woman's neck was broken, and blue blood flowed out. Her pink tongue stuck out and her eyes dimmed. She died instantly. As for the other burly men, they were merely rank S or rank X metahumans, yet they were directly smashed into pieces by Jiang Tian's palm, their flesh and blood splattering everywhere. Cool. So cool. Han Qingli pretended to be scared. She hugged Jiang Tian's arm and took advantage of Jiang Tian. Marvel Comics should be based on them, but now they are all dead because of Master Kong. Haha, this is just the appetizer. Next, there will be a more exciting battle. Jiang Tian smiled faintly and walked out of the door. Suddenly, he looked into the depths of the clouds. A missile more than 10 meters long, leaving a trail of white air turbulence in its wake, silently shot over from the sky. It didn't make any sound. To be exact, Jiang Tian could see the missile, but he couldn't hear it. It meant that the missile's speed had exceeded the speed of sound. Jiang Tian's divine sense judged that it should be 8 times the speed of sound, comparable to the flying sword of a Foundation establishment cultivator. Whoosh! The missile was extremely accurate. It was shot at Jiang Tian's head with less than 10 centimeters of error. Boom! There was an earth-shattering explosion. The missile exploded in an instant. In the area where Jiang Tian was, everything within a radius of 300 to 400 meters had been leveled to the ground. Flames soared into the sky. However, the outside of Morgan Manor didn't suffer any damage. 20 kilometers away from Morgan Manor, on the observation deck of the Statue of Liberty's crown, this place had been urgently requisitioned and transformed into the temporary headquarters of the Pentagon's decapitation operation. Many electronic screens were set up, and formed a battlefield information command system together with various communication devices. Kong Taechu is doomed after all. Morgan looked at the manor from afar with a pair of binoculars. His face was full of excitement. After he brought Jiang Tian to the Blue Witch, he immediately took a helicopter to this place. Because he knew that the decapitation operation would be carried out immediately. That's a bullet from Godslayer. It's equivalent to 1,000 tons of TNT. How can Kong Taechu survive? What kind of Eastern immortal is this? He's still going to die when he meets our Godslayer. I'm afraid he's already turned into a pile of ashes. General Keynes, your plan is flawless. I think we have to prepare for a press conference soon. We have to open champagne to celebrate. What a pity. It's really a pity to lose the Super X-level Ocean Lady. Beside him, a few generals from the Pentagon surrounded Keynes. They were all overjoyed. Their eyes were full of excitement, like flies rubbing their hands together. Chapter 8:12. Nuclear weapons had nuclear radiation, shock waves, light radiation, and other destructive powers. Unlike atomic bombs and hydrogen bombs, Atomic bombs mainly used the high-energy neutron radiation released at the moment of explosion to injure and kill people, not shock waves. During the explosion, the number of neutrons shot out from a nuclear explosion was 5 to 6 times more than a fission bomb of the same power. The proportion of high-energy neutrons was also greatly increased. Normally, it was about 20 times more than a fission nuclear weapon. However, the neutron bomb had a huge advantage. The shock wave produced by the explosion was smaller. A neutron bomb with the equivalent of 1,000 tons of TNT could instantly kill people with a radius of 800 meters, but the shock wave only damaged buildings with a radius of 300 to 400 meters. It wouldn't turn into ruins like atomic bombs or hydrogen bombs, but there would be more casualties. The neutron bomb belonged to the third generation of nuclear bombs, while the God-slaying bomb belonged to the fourth generation of nuclear bombs. It had just come out of the laboratory, and its performance and lethality were even more terrifying than a normal bomb. At this time, the explosion in the core area where Jiangtian was at was as lethal as the nuclear bombs of 15,000 tons and 20,000 tons dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. This weapon was specially prepared for the holy lords and kings in the Holy See, which was why it was called God-slaying. Who would have thought that it would be used on Jiangtian first? No, it's not that simple. On the side, General Keynes said with a grave expression, Kong Taechu is an overlord who has surpassed the immortal state. He might be able to withstand a nuclear bomb. He waved his hand and immediately issued a second order with a firm tone. Universe Shield Team, go and kill Kong Taechu immediately. If he's alive, I want to see him. If he's dead, I want to see his body. The neutron bomb was very lethal and had very little pollution. Besides, the decapitation operation had been set up perfectly. The Morgan Manor was located on Gavanis Island, far away from the city, which was very suitable for the God-slaying bomb. All the members of the Morgan family and the surrounding residents in the manor evacuated. The operation had been successful from the beginning to the end, but for some reason, Keynes felt a bit uneasy. A few supersonic fighter jets broke the sound barrier and flew over New York City, hovering a few hundred meters above the Morgan Manor in a blink. Swish, 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 swish. Some even sped up by the blue flames under their shoes, shooting toward the manor like cannonballs. Some of the genetically modified warriors stretched out their arms and large wings burst out from their backs. They flapped their wings and flew over. Some of them relied on their strong physical bodies and did not wear armor. They were not afraid of the impact of falling from a height of hundreds of meters, and jumped down boldly. Almost every one of them had reached grade X, which was equivalent to the cultivation of an immortal. Coupled with the super armor, their combat power quickly rose to the level of a human celestial sage. With so many powerhouses coming out in full force, anyone who faced them would feel their scalp go numb. Meanwhile, in a luxurious office on the 80th floor of a chic building on New York's financial district, Charlene's face was pale as she sipped her coffee. She and the other upper echelons of the Heavenly God Corporation looked at the Morgan Manor through the screen. They were only the representatives of the Heavenly God Corporation. But this time, the owner of the Heavenly God Corporation let them watch the video of Kong Taechu to strengthen their confidence. The Heavenly Gods had the ability to kill Kong Taechu and rule the world. The Heavenly Gods haven't come out yet, and Kong Taechu is already dead? Sigh. He's too weak. An executive exclaimed. I've already told him, but he still went to die. Who can he blame? Swish, 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 swish. She felt very regretful, but more than that, she felt sorrow for his misfortune and anger for his failure to strive. Jiang Tian, you will never understand how terrifying deities are. That old fellow Keynes is too despicable. Why did he use a neutron bomb? I really want to fight with Jiang Taichu. In Morgan Manor, a grade 10 metahuman chewed on a piece of gum with a gloomy expression. He was called Steel Mountain. True to his name, he was 2.5 meters tall, like a majestic mountain of flesh. Those sturdy muscles were like horned dragons coiling around his chest and arms, shining with a strange metallic luster. He was a metal esper. He didn't control metal, but when he used his esper ability, his muscles could become as hard as steel. In the 50s and 60s, He had followed the U.S. Army to hunt down dark overlords all over the world and killed 3 immortal state warriors in Southeast Asia. What a boring mission. He's here to collect Kong Teichu's body. Damn it. Another female physical awakened also complained. They were all super experts and thought highly of themselves. They didn't support Kane's using the Blue Witch to disguise himself as an assassin, or using neutron bullets. They should have fought Kong Teichu openly to announce the existence of the universe shield to the world. According to the thermal imaging, there are no longer any signs of life here. This Jiang Taichu is too weak. Another powerhouse wearing a fiery red super armor said regretfully. You want to fight me? I'll help you. Right at this moment, a mocking voice suddenly sounded. Everyone was shocked to see a figure slowly emerge from the smoke. Behind him was a trembling, pale-faced Chinese woman who was hugging his arm tightly. Kong Teichu. Everyone exclaimed and widened their eyes in disbelief. Although they were complaining, when they saw Jiang Tian appear in front of them intact, there was only fear in their hearts. Deep fear. He couldn't even be killed by a bullet. Was he still a human? Was there anything in the world that could kill him? At the same time, in the temporary headquarters on the Statue of Liberty, Kane's almost jumped up in shock. He's really not dead. How is this possible? Retreat. You can't defeat him. We'll use our long-range weapons, he exclaimed. As soon as this voice sounded in the ears of many universe shield warriors on the battlefield, Jiang Tian had already made his move. Boom. Jiang Tian's face was cold. He raised his hand and slapped down casually. Boom. The extremely vast and terrifying essence chi of heaven and earth was instantly mobilized and turned into a giant golden palm with a radius of 300 meters. The giant golden palm that descended from the sky was like a gigantic spiritual god slapping down, or like a Buddha pressing down with his 5-finger mountain. It carried with it a boundless might and contained boundless surging, unstoppable power. What is this? Countless overlords of the universe shield warriors looked up with shock in their eyes. Their faces were pale, and they were terrified. A huge pressure came, as if thousands of mountains were falling down at the same time. It was unbearable and even their bones were about to break. Crack. Crack. Those super mechanical exoskeleton armors made a violent sound as if they were about to explode. Run. It was unknown who shouted this. Dozens of experts used their ultimate techniques or used the flames of their super armors to rush into the distance. But it was too late. The giant golden palm was too fast. It was like a meteorite falling from the sky with ear-piercing sounds. There were already red flames on the edge of the giant golden palm. Boom. The ground shook and a giant handprint with a radius of 300 meters appeared on the ground. It sank a dozen meters into the ground, as if a giant meteorite had fallen from the sky. When the 7th metal true essence and the chi of heaven and earth dissipated, they saw broken limbs and blood in the deep pit. Those universe shield warriors who weren't wearing armor were all broken and turned into blood and flesh. Those super armors were also cracked and twisted, with blood oozing out. The overlords inside were all killed, but they were lucky and at least had a whole body. Jiang Tian had killed dozens of elites of the universe shield. Oh my god. How is that possible? That's terrifying. I guess only the overlords of the Heavenly God Corporation can deal with him. Forgive us, immortal Jiang. We surrender. The few Universe Shield members who were lucky enough to escape were so scared that they wet their pants. Their legs were so weak that they couldn't even move. They immediately knelt down and begged for mercy. This was the Universe Shield, the most powerful super overlord organization in the United States, and their last card was even more powerful than the Blue Storm. There were many overlords and immortal state warriors. And yet, dozens of them had been killed by Jiang Tian. That wasn't a battle. It was a one-sided massacre. It was as easy as an elephant stomping on ants. Didn't you want to challenge me? Now I'm giving you a chance. Jiang Tian smiled and said, Come on, fight with me. Why are you kneeling? I'm not a god. Master Kong, you're my idol. I heard that you're also a metal warrior. I, Gangshan, am also a metal warrior. The mighty and majestic steel mountain was now lying on the ground like a toad, shivering like a quail in the cold wind. He was trying to get close to Jiang Tian. Immortal Jiang, please don't kill me. I really admire you. He was crying and snot bubbles were coming out of his nose. He didn't look like an overlord at all. Immortal Jiang, we're nothing compared to you. Just treat us like farts and let us go. The fiery red armored warrior, who seemed to be Chinese, said such words. Before this, they were also super overlords who had dominated the world and killed without restraint. Outside the United States, they had always regarded human lives as nothing. Their hearts were hard and strong, and they were cold-blooded and ruthless. They were almost inhuman. They never knew what fear was, but now they finally had a taste of it. Now they all understood. The reason they were so fearless was that they had never met anyone who could threaten their lives. When faced with the threat of death, they would also feel fear and beg for mercy. They would even say things like they were nothing. Why are all of you so weak? Can't you fight with me? Jiang Tian shook his head in disappointment and sighed with a bleak expression. Being invincible is so lonely. It's lonely at the top. Master Kong, you're so cool when you're lonely. Han Qingli giggled beside him. Her clear eyes were full of admiration and infatuation. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.